High-tech alchemy at Hogwarts. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. I thought you were the only one who would understand. Why don't you come to my office and have a cup of tea so we can have a good chat? Professor Quirrell invited William with a smile. Having a warm tea party with the 1/7th Dark Lord was never on William's schedule. In his original plan, Dumbledore, the old bee, and old Futile were left to love and kill each other, while William spent the remaining 4 years in a fulfilling and satisfying way. Why not, Professor? But William still agreed to Quirrell. They walked together to Quirrell's office on the 3rd floor. Quirrell walked in front and asked casually, "William, I hope you don't mind me calling you that. You are from Ilvermorny. Have you heard about the Heisenberg? I heard that he is a student of Ilvermorny." "I am Heisenberg." William naturally couldn't say that. "I don't really know him. It was only later that I found out that he was one of us, but I didn't really know him." Shaking his head, William answered, "That's a pity. How great it would be to go to the same school as such an outstanding person." Professor Quirrell showed a very sincere regretful expression on his face. They walked around the corner. "Please come in. My office may be a little messy. I hope you don't mind." He pushed open the door of the office and turned sideways to let William walk into the office. To be honest, William thought he had entered the wrong office for a while. This was not like the office of Professor Quirrell, who taught the Defense Against the Dark Arts class in the first year. Instead, it was more like the style of the gloomy and mean Snape. The chandelier in the room was not turned on. The light was very dim. There were several paintings hanging on the wall close to William. William observed that the contents on them were mostly twisted and struggling human figures, or long paragraphs of text written in a language that William could not recognize. Facing the door was a pair of brown high-back sofas. They were placed in front of the burning stove, with an exquisite tea table in the middle. At the end of the office was a long desk, and a long curtain fell behind the desk. An old-fashioned projector was slowly changing the screen. "I was just preparing the content for your class tomorrow. To be honest, the previous Defense Against the Dark Arts professor left too hastily, which made me very nervous." Professor Quirrell clapped his hands, and the chandelier in the room suddenly turned on, and the projector went out. This office is not small, but perhaps because of the layout, it seems particularly crowded. On the other side of the room is a tall glass cabinet, which is stacked with a lot of parchment rolls that look very simple. William dared to swear that he saw some black and red stains or marks on the edges of some rolls that were leaking out. "Please sit down, William." "Unfortunately, I only have tea here." Quirrell took out 2 teacups from the cabinet on the coffee table. "Sugar? Milk?" "A little milk will do, thank you." William saw Quirrell lower his head and add milk to his tea. He couldn't help but imagine whether the dark devil on the back of Quirrell's head was hiding behind the scarf and watching at this moment. "Here." Quirrell handed the teacup to William. To be honest, the progress of this tea party was somewhat beyond William's expectations. They chatted casually, and Quirrell was very curious about his courses in Ilvermorny. "I heard that you have to learn the dark arts in North America, right? Unlike Hogwarts, we are only allowed to teach students how to defend against the dark arts." Quirrell held the teacup and looked at William. Against the light of the fireplace, his face looked even paler, but his black eyes seemed to be shining. "Yes, but our Defense Against the Dark Arts class is not just about the dark arts. We will also learn to deal with difficult opponents, such as evil spirits, ghosts, dark creatures, etc., and we will also learn how to break and counter curses." William avoided Quirrell's topic. Although in the past Defense Against the Dark Arts class, the most common countermeasure mentioned by the professor was throw the most powerful dark magic you have. "Don't leave any sympathy, really." Professor Quirrell seemed a little disappointed with William's answer. He shook his head slightly, and then asked William about what they had learned last year. William answered as detailed as possible. Professor Quirrell listened very carefully. Sometimes he even asked William to repeat it, and he took out a pen and paper to write it down. In the intervals of the conversation, Quirrell would not only give some of his own interpretations of the course content mentioned by William, but also talk about his experience as a student and teacher at Hogwarts. "Perhaps you don't know, I am also a Ravenclaw." When mentioning the college, Quirrell smiled proudly. "It's just that I didn't have such superb spell skills as you at that time. You may be able to guess what those guys would do to stuttering, cowardly nerd." "I'm sorry, Professor." William didn't answer him. Slytherin is hated by other colleges, not without reason, not to mention Quirrell is a Ravenclaw, and the smart eagles rarely really care about the situation of others, even if they are their classmates. After graduation, I stayed at Hogwarts. Of course, it wasn't because I was smart or good at studying, but because I didn't know what I could do once I left the castle. Professor Dumbledore was very kind to keep me. Professor Quirrell smiled self-deprecatingly. A poor stutterer, a timid Quirrell, a muggle professor who should live with muggles. Until one day, I suddenly realized that what the Defense Against the Dark Arts class should really teach students is not the means of defending against dark magic, but power. Yes, it is more direct, power. Professor Quirrell's voice was calm and powerful. The active power that can change oneself, change wizards, and even change and shape the world. We are the first to awaken, and we are also the ones chosen by fate. He looked at William. William had a feeling, this tea party is getting to the point. After I finally decided to accept Professor Dumbledore's offer to take over the position of Defense Against the Dark Arts professor, I used my vacation time to go on an adventure that I may never forget in my life. If you are interested, William, I am willing to share with you the intoxicating knowledge and power. After all, we are all Ravenclaws, eagles, greedy knowledge plunderers, aren't we? Quirrell spoke slowly and even stuttered in his soft voice. His black eyes stared at William, without a trace of falsehood in his expression, and William was even moved by his honesty. William had no doubt about Quirrell's sincerity at the moment. If he agreed now, Quirrell would share everything he had obtained from his master, the Dark Lord, with him in the next second, and even give him more. Without reservation. And even without asking for anything in return. The flames in the fireplace burned. The charcoal cracked, making a crackling sound. Sorry, Professor, I think it's too late now. I should go back to the common room. William shook his head slowly but firmly. Well, I thought you were the only one who would understand. I chose you. But it seems that this is a mistake, and you are obviously not ready to accept it. Quirrell lowered his head with regret and said dryly, Mr. Buffalo, maybe you should leave. Thank you Helena 21 for the monthly ticket. Thank you Louis Chen for the monthly ticket. Thank you book friend 202012121314250062 for the reward. In the original book, Quirrell's stuttering was faked, because he thought that this would reduce other people's vigilance and use this opportunity to better serve his master, but now Quirrell has found confidence in Heisenberg's article, and his performance before taking over as the professor of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class is different. Because William comes from a school that attaches great importance to the dark arts, and he is a transfer, Quirrell naturally guessed that he was also excluded in school for some reason. If you feel that there is something unreasonable or problematic during the reading process, please feel free to raise it, or come to the group to discuss. Every feedback, positive or negative, from you is very important to me. Attached is Rowling's evaluation of Quirrell from Pottermore. Quirrell seems to me to be a gifted but weak boy. During his school career, he was ridiculed a lot, perhaps because of his timidity and nervousness. He was not satisfied with himself and wanted to prove himself, so he gradually became interested in black magic. At first he was only interested in the theory of black magic. Like those who feel that they are insignificant or even ridiculous, Quirrell has a latent desire to make the world look at him with new eyes. Chapter 52 Idealists are incurable. The Defense Against the Dark Arts office on the 3rd floor. After William left, it became dark again, with only the strong burning in the stove providing a dim light for illumination. My master, I misjudged that buffalo. I originally thought that he should be like me, looking forward to having the power to change his destiny. After transferring from that place to Hogwarts, he should be someone who can understand us, Quirrell said bitterly. That coward. He suddenly changed his tone to contempt. What you found in the forest was a surprise. It bought me precious time. But I still need to accumulate more strength to find a way to completely get rid of this incomplete form, Quirrell muttered to himself. How could this disgusting fake life be worthy of my greatness if it weren't for that boy? I saw that boy in class. Master, I have released the owl, and I believe those scum will reply soon. If you can find the manuscript, you can go through the ritual and be resurrected again. His voice suddenly sounded fanatical and eager again. He lowered his voice, but it was full of fanaticism. But the next moment, Quirrell became cold and gloomy again and said, Don't have any expectations on them. Even if you find them, what's the use? It's a curse. How can the effect be compared with that stone? They are just byproducts of the experiment. We let them out just as bait to attract the attention of that damn old fool Dumbledore. Quirinus, my most loyal servant, you must always remember, I have gone further than anyone else on this road to immortality. When I return, your loyalty will be rewarded the most generously." A slight sobbing sound rang out in the darkness. At the same time, William had also returned to the Ravenclaw Tower. He quickened his pace a little. The conversation with Quirrell gave him a very bad feeling. That's an idealist, William thought with some worry. He did yearn for magic and thirsted for knowledge, but it had to be based on one condition: it must be earned by himself, whether through learning or exchange, and never begging. And if Quirrell really obeyed Voldemort's orders as in the original book, and even secretly wanted to use spells to attack him, then William felt that it was not worth worrying about anything. But Quirrell's performance and words revealed full sincerity. He believed from the bottom of his heart that he was following a great man and engaging in a great cause. But from any perspective, Voldemort was an extremely dangerous and unstable party. William stood in front of Griffock. Griffock said nothing and turned around silently, obviously not having thought of the answer to William's Ship of Theseus question. Idealists are hopeless. William shook his head and pushed open the door of the common room. "Boo, boo," Gabe cried to him. He seemed to like the statue of Rowena Ravenclaw very much. He climbed on top of her head again and coiled up into a ball. The statue raised its left arm helplessly, trying to drive him away, but every time it approached, it was gently slapped down by the vigilant claw. William walked towards him. Gabe jumped lightly and nimbly bumped into William's arms, but he was very smart to climb onto his shoulders without hurting him at all. As for the unfortunate statue, it finally put down its left hand, pretending that nothing had happened, and continued to pose as if it was guarding the library behind it. She stared at the brown seedling from the corner of her eye. "She will be very distressed if you do this." William took out a bar of chocolate from his shoulder bag and opened the package. Gabe cried "ooh" softly, took it with satisfaction, and held it with both hands and licked it. After washing up, William lay down on the bed. Poor Jimmy spent too much time on training, and was probably still working hard in the library to deal with the troublesome thesis left by Snape. Maybe I should make some preparations, William thought, and slowly fell asleep. The long night passed. When William, who was used to getting up early, changed his robes and came out of the dormitory, the house elf Lalo was already waiting for him in the common room. He looked very tired, obviously exhausted by William's errand. "Mr. Wizard, as you asked, I delivered all the letters and asked them to deliver the goods to the empty warehouse you designated for storage. I didn't take those things back until all of them left." Lalo handed a small bag to William, and he unfolded it to check it out. There was a very complete set of laboratory equipment inside, from standard beakers and funnels to large stirring kettles used for heating synthesis, and even many fancy-looking instruments that William couldn't figure out what they were. But his principle has always been to buy this kind of thing first, even if it is not used at that time. It looks good to put it on display. Mr. Scott contacted Mr. Horace and asked him to introduce several Muggle architects. I have already delivered the letter to their homes. All that is left is to wait for their reply. Lalo took out a piece of parchment from his waist. On it, several people's professional backgrounds and project histories were written in distorted but serious handwriting. Most of them have obtained a second-class degree from university and have experience in managing large engineering projects, but they are currently temporarily resigned from their jobs for various reasons. And they all have one thing in common. They are very short of money. Several potion shop owners are very interested in the products you mentioned. They want to know when you can start supplying them at the earliest. But they don't seem to be satisfied with the concept of guided retail price you proposed, and hope to communicate with you face to face. However, they did give you a very good discount for the materials they purchased. I have already labeled them and put them in the cabinet in the bag." While speaking, Lalo tried to lift his eyelids inconspicuously, trying to sneak a peek at William's expression, whether it was joy or anger. But his actions were too obvious. All that could be seen was William's poker face when he was thinking seriously. William carefully read the letters Lalo brought back. Needless to say, the soft articles submitted to the magazine editors, any product with the words Heisenberg authorized could make their heads full of blood. Go back and tell the owners of those potion shops to either accept the retail price guide or not sell my products. If they object, I believe they will definitely object, then just leave. He gently patted Lalo's shoulder and said, "You did a great job, Lalo." This simple action made the house elf's body tremble. Lalo subconsciously thought that William was going to punish him, but he didn't expect to be praised and thanked. Of course, Mr. Buffalo. But if Professor Dumbledore knew that you asked us to leave the castle to do things, he would definitely have an opinion. Lalo showed an excited expression, but was a little hesitant. It doesn't matter, Professor Dumbledore will agree, William comforted the house elf. With enough raw materials and equipment, although the dumplings have not been wrapped yet, he can already make this money printing machine run first. Even Dumbledore, the most powerful white wizard in the world, would not insist on not letting him borrow the castle's house elves in front of the gold galleons. Lalo is really much more talented than he thought. But before that, William has been looking forward to today's ancient magic class for too long. Thanks to Nild for the reward. Thanks to Louis Chen for the monthly ticket. Thanks to I can't think of a nickname for the monthly ticket. I hope you don't think of this paragraph describing Quirrell is too long. After all, you are a book fan, so you have to give it a powerful show. New book recommendations next week, please read it and vote for me. Chapter 53, Detective Quirrell. With a light puff sound, Lalo disappeared from William's sight. He should have returned to the kitchen to do his job today. William also came to the hall. Penelope was already sitting at the long table. Morning, she saw William and greeted him. Morning, William nodded and went to get the usual cereal and milk. The plate was filled with some scrambled eggs and 2 fried garlic sausages that were so fragrant. Speaking of which, I haven't seen Professor Dumbledore today. He never misses breakfast, Penelope said after taking a sip of pumpkin juice. Maybe he got up late, William guessed casually, although his real thought was actually the Ministry of Magic used the most powerful white magic, Dumbledore's flying spell, and Dumbledore used lightning flash. The first class today is Professor Quirrell's Defense Against the Dark Arts class. In order to prepare for the course, he went out for an adventure and even entered the deepest part of the Albanian forest, Penelope said excitedly. I heard that there are still many curses in the depths of that forest. Many wizards have gone there to adventure, but only some of them can come back alive. Maybe there is also a vampire named Dracula. Unfortunately, William was not interested. They came to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom on the 3rd floor. It was just opposite Quirrell's office. William pushed open the door of the classroom, and Quirrell, who had been waiting in the classroom for a long time, nodded to them, as if nothing had happened last night. A white curtain was hung in front of the blackboard and hung down. William noticed that many little wizards were pointing at it, whispering, and guessing what the thing was used for. About a few seconds before the bell rang, the last student also rushed to the classroom. Okay. Let's start the class now, Professor Quirrell clapped his hands and said. He took out a list and called out one by one. Every time he called a little wizard, he would pause for a while, as if he was trying to remember their appearance and name. Maybe some of you know me. Like Miss Clearwater, Mr. Sue, he nodded to Penelope and a Hufflepuff boy sitting over there, but I think most of you don't know that my name is Quirinus Quirrell. This year I will teach you the Defense Against the Dark Arts course. But before we officially start the class, I would like to invite you to watch some interesting records with me. Professor Quirrell flicked his wand quickly, and the curtains in the classroom were pulled down in a flash. The old projector began to play the picture. Not long ago, I went to Albania. After learning that I was a professor from Hogwarts, the local Ministry of Magic commissioned me to help them investigate a strange disappearance of tourists. As he spoke, his own figure appeared on the screen. Quirrell had not put on the scarf at that time, and was surrounded by several people in the center, smiling and nodding. After my investigation, I found that the place where the tourist appeared before he disappeared was an inn. Within a week, several Muggle disappearances occurred in the area around the inn. The screen switched to a messy guest room. All the poor victims. Quirrell paused briefly. Of course, I only found out about this afterwards. He sighed, didn't take their luggage with them, and never came back after leaving the hotel. All of them were at night. From this, I began to think that this was a crime committed by dark creatures, and that I had a responsibility to help the local residents solve this nightmare. The screen flipped, and several new characters appeared. The man in the lead was dressed in a neat suit, with a silver cross necklace hanging on his chest, and a tattered book half exposed from his pocket. They were a few Muggles, and when I wanted to investigate the truth, they rudely tried to expel me. At this time I used some spells to make them mistakenly believe that I was actually their companion, and learned some clues, Quirrell introduced calmly. They are actually from the Muggle Church, and they are here to investigate the whereabouts of several escaped vampires. This undoubtedly explains the disappearance of Muggle tourists and a wizard. He turned another page. The picture turned into a man with long and sharp canine teeth and a ferocious face. He had a pair of bat-like wings behind him, bloodshot eyes, and dark red liquid dripping from the corners of his mouth. A timid student exclaimed. Vampires are a kind of dark creatures with wisdom. Usually, they can behave like ordinary people. Except that they cannot touch the sun and silver, there are no abnormal signs. But when they touch human blood and fall into a frenzy, they will turn into bloodthirsty beasts. Older vampires can gradually learn to suppress their instinctive impulses, but this kind of control is like trying to extinguish burning oil with ice water. The more they suppress it, when it breaks out, the more terrible the ferocity brought by this hunger will become. Quirrell introduced the dark creatures such as vampires. Frankly speaking, the experience of this course reminded William of his college classes in his previous life. The teachers at the school would use PPT, pictures, videos and other forms to teach them courses in a vivid way. Everyone held their breath. The pictures flipped one by one, and Quirrell followed the muggles, followed the traces left by the vampires, and found their lair. Although the muggles could not use spells, they took out many tools that could target vampires and cause them harm. After Quirrell used a powerful split into pieces to seriously injure a vampire that jumped out of the shadows and ran straight towards him, and the muggles nailed his heart, they successfully destroyed the lair. There, we also found many blasphemous manuscripts that recorded very evil black magic, and burned them all. Quirrell flipped the projection to the last one. William saw him pick up a manuscript with Dr. John Dee's necromancer written on the cover, and pretended to throw it into the flames. Wait? This name Dr. John Dee. William was very sure that he had seen this name not long ago, and he suspected that the story that Professor Quirrell was telling at this moment might actually have another part, or another version. So, we must study defense against the dark arts seriously. You may think that this course is not as practical as charms, or as profound as transfiguration. Quirrell tapped his wand and pulled up all the curtains that had been lowered in the classroom. The bright sunlight shone into the classroom, causing many young wizards to breathe deeply. But I can assure you that danger is actually lurking around all of you. When it really takes action, you may have already fallen into its trap. Now, let's start the class. Thank you Kopu for the monthly ticket. Thank you Tit Feeders for the reward. Thank you for the reward of Yi's opinion. Cyrillic letter Z, please give me some recommendation votes. Please give me some recommendation votes that will disappear if you don't vote. It was reported that the first week has not passed, and the pace will be accelerated next. Please wait and see. Recommend this book. Chapter 54. Who is John Dee? Even from William's preconceived perspective, Professor Quirrell's first class was quite exciting. When he officially began to teach the content of the course, a universal solution to a curse, all the students were learning with great enthusiasm. See, I told you. Professor Quirrell is very good at teaching. After class, Penelope said proudly with her head raised. Indeed, he is very bold. William thought of what Professor Quirrell said before the class officially started. Danger is actually lurking around all of you, which was almost an obvious announcement of the existence of the Dark Lord. But no one could find it. I guess Voldemort was also very proud at this moment. He could play with everyone in Hogwarts in his palm and announce the answer in front of everyone, but no one would associate it with him. I heard from senior students that Professor Quirrell was not like this before. At that time, you could hardly learn anything useful in his class. He just kept trembling and reading the textbook until the end of the get out of class. When they said that Muggle studies was very interesting, I laughed at him. William heard that a Ravenclaw boy was talking to his companions. In the previous class, this boy successfully used the universal antidote to break a prank trick, allowing Quirrell to add 5 points for him. People always change, don't they? Penelope nodded and sighed. It's a pity that the position of the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts is cursed. Since many years ago, no one has been able to stay in this position for more than a year. I hope Professor Quirrell will not encounter an accident. I really can't say. Picking up his shoulder bag, William left the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom and went to the library. The Ancient Runes class was in the afternoon, and he wanted to use this time to preview it a little more, and if possible, it would be best to find some clues about Dr. John Dee. Even if it's him, he wouldn't be so arrogant, right? Although William thought so, he always felt that today's class was like the Dark Lord announcing his arrival to the entire Hogwarts. Unfortunately, although William flipped through many books, including the Great Wizards of the 20th Century and the Directory of Contemporary Famous Magicians, he still found nothing in the end. Even in the major discoveries of modern magic and research on the development of modern witchcraft, the name of Dr. John Dee could not be found at all. There are hundreds of aisles and thousands of bookshelves full of books in the Hogwarts library, but there is no reliable bibliographic retrieval and query system. At lunchtime, Dumbledore still did not show up. This is not a good sign. William felt that the situation seemed a little bad. After lunch, he came to the classroom of the ancient magic class early. This is probably the smallest classroom in Hogwarts. Looking around, it can only accommodate 20 people at most. Professor Babbling, who was in charge of teaching this course, was a middle-aged witch with black hair. Perhaps because this course was too difficult, she had heavy bags under her eyes and looked like she had not gotten enough sleep. Students walked into the classroom one after another. Even when the bell rang, this small classroom was still not full. Professor Babbling stood up. Although there are not many familiar faces here, it seems that more students will join us this year. This is a good thing. I must say, she glanced around the classroom and nodded. Many people believe that writing spells in Latin is the most effective way. They forget that before Hogwarts was founded, the study of Latin was always controlled by muggles, and wizards could only learn the few words they leaked. But in a much earlier era, the magic of runes has been proven. In Northern Europe, wizards used ancient magic to fight, cast, and prophesy, creating a very splendid culture. Professor Babbling took out her wand and conjured up a stream of smoke. They gradually formed a picture in midair. It was a man hanging upside down on a tree, his right hand covering his bleeding eye socket. The great Odin sacrificed one of his eyes and hung himself upside down on an ashbark tree for 7 days and 7 nights before he finally understood the secret of runes. He was therefore worshipped as the father of the gods by muggles. The smoke turned into characters. Runes were used by ancient wizards for divination, witchcraft, and writing. Unlike popular Latin spells, each rune has a unique meaning. Therefore, it is crucial to master the correct interpretation method from the beginning when learning runes. Before this class begins, I must remind you that ancient magic may be the most difficult course you can learn at Hogwarts, and sometimes even if you make great efforts, you may not get the corresponding progress, Professor Babbling said with a very serious expression. She looked at the little wizards one by one, trying to find hesitation and retreat from their faces or eyes. She found it easily. Miss Seraphine, Professor Babbling pointed to a girl who raised her hand. Then why do we have to study this course? If it is so difficult and useless? Aren't the spells we usually use already written? The girl stood up and stammered, but still asked. Her point of view represents the thoughts of the vast majority of students who have just signed up for this course. Of course it's because it has value. Professor Babbling raised her head proudly. Learning Latin spells well can indeed make you an excellent wizard, but there is no truly great wizard who has not deeply understood the secrets of runes. If you have heard of it, you must know that the fire that occurred in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris was caused by the use of the secrets of runes. Noticing that her words only made a few people in the class gasp, Professor Babbling's expression showed a trace of regret, but she continued, for those who are timid and used to retreating, you can of course go to the dean of your college and apply to change to an easier elective course. But if you are still curious enough, please listen to it. She swung her wand downwards, and a large section of neat blackboard suddenly appeared on the empty blackboard. The rune characters, pronunciation, meaning, etc. were displayed on it in a very clear way. With Professor Babbling's explanation, William finally understood where he was wrong before, because runes and runes have different but unified expressions in the meaning of words and the interpretation of magic. Rune words are not only one of the application forms of rune magic, but also a more difficult type of them. Above rune words, there are even more difficult rune arrays that Dumbledore had shown. Not only that, he also learned that ancient Viking wizards would carve runes on tools with magical blood, often from the wizards themselves, or powerful magical creatures, to allow them to exert the magic of rune words. Before they knew it, the bell for the end of class had already runged. Goodbye, Professor Babbling. They stood up and said goodbye to the professor. If I can understand the rune words and combine them with large machine assembly line production, I can occupy half of the stores in Diagon Alley at the very least. William recalled the content of the course just now and walked towards the room of requirement. He had already thought of several combinations of rune words that seemed good, and he couldn't wait to try them out. Thanks to Yuan Wangsuiyu for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Aspirin for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Deep Feeders for the tip. Thanks to Heath Iced Tea for the tip. Oh my god. Chapter 55, Strengthening, Truth, and Glory. Inventing new spells is a very dangerous thing. This is especially true for exploring the rune word. At first, William thought that he only needed to work a miracle by putting all the runes together and observing the effect from a distance, but he soon found out in practice that this was actually a stupid idea. The order in which the runes are arranged is different, and the effects are completely different. Some runes have a fundamental conflict with each other, and as soon as they are linked, they will explode into a ball of disordered magic. Repeated runs of the same rune sometimes have an effect. When the runes representing the bison are linked together, they will give him physical strength far beyond that of ordinary people, but they will also quickly exhaust his physical strength. Under the effect of this rune word, a little white mouse easily broke a hanger. For Merlin's sake, William waved his wand and made the unlucky little white mouse that had been running wildly for more than 10 minutes disappear. After the effect of the rune word ended, all the blood vessels in its body burst, and its whole body was bright red. But this can be used on living creatures created by transfiguration. I might call it strengthening. You've been strengthened, go and deliver it. Taking out his notebook, William carefully recorded the results of this experiment. In order to ensure his own safety, he first cast all the rune words remotely through the room of requirement through the existence spell, and only when he could confirm that it was safe would he proceed to the next step of exploration. Although most of the attempts failed, in the few successful explorations, most of the combinations William could not figure out the specific effects for the time being due to the lack of testing methods, but he still managed to find a few rune words that could work. The rune representing fire, once activated, can create a powerful explosion with itself as the center. The more magic power injected, the stronger its persuasiveness. William named it truth. They represent the sun, the gift, and the joy respectively. This rune word can build a barrier of positive energy. Although it has almost no effect on ordinary spells, it can play a very significant defensive role against evil spells and dark magic. William named it glory. Let's go here first. William put away his notebook with satisfaction, waved his wand, cleaned up the messy room of requirement, and used the repair spell to tidy up the history of magic to a level that Professor Binns might not mind very much. He paid too much for the rune word. Fortunately, at dinner, William finally saw Professor Dumbledore at the table where the teachers were. Although the fatigue between his eyebrows could not be concealed at all, as long as the white wizard appeared there, it was already a strong reassurance. He looks tired, doesn't he? I really want to know what makes him feel so tired. He is the strongest white wizard in the world. Penelope also noticed Dumbledore's performance. If I guess correctly, there will be news in the newspaper tomorrow morning. By the way, do you have anything to do after the astronomy class? William asked in a low voice. At Hogwarts, he didn't know many people who could help him. Considering that Jimmy was biting his quill hard, as if he could get inspiration for writing love letters through this ritual, the choice was even less. By the way, judging from his sleep talk, William felt that Jimmy was destined to face another miserable failure. How can a normal person praise a girl's eyes as black as a beetle and her smile as a Bernese mountain dog? William felt that he and Hagrid must have a common language. Well, it's nothing serious, Penelope recalled for a while and answered. I need a little help when making potions. If you are willing to come, I can. William stopped talking abruptly because he noticed that Penelope's eyes were becoming dangerous, more and more like Professor McGonagall when she was angry. If I am willing to help, it will definitely not be because you promised to give me something. You may want to change the way you ask, Penelope said word by word. Sorry, then are you willing to be my potion assistant tonight? William asked a little embarrassedly. Of course, Penelope smiled beautifully. What assistant? Jimmy looked up belatedly. After dinner, they walked towards the astronomy tower together. This is the highest point in the entire Hogwarts castle. There's a platform on the top of the tower. As long as they look up, they can see the sky full of stars. Professor Sinistra, who is responsible for teaching this course, will lead the students to observe the changes of the stars and record a trajectory of the changes in the stars in the form of astrological charts. What we are going to learn today is a somewhat special planet, Mars. When everyone looked up at the sky through the telescope, Professor Sinistra said in her soft voice. She is a tall black witch with chocolate-colored skin and very delicate facial features. It is a scarlet planet. The ancient Romans named it after the god of war in mythology. Prophets would say that when Mars is as bright as it is now, it means that a disaster is about to happen. She paused briefly. But what we have to do here is just observation and recording. The future is changeable and difficult to predict. Even the most gifted prophets are often blinded by superficial representations, but the movement of the stars is different. To be honest, this may be the least magical course in the entire Hogwarts, but it is still very interesting. Professor Sinistra led them to carefully explain the characteristics of Mars, including its rotation, revolution, and 2 satellites. In his previous life, although William was very interested in these things since he was a child, he was always busy with the middle school entrance examination, the college entrance examination, and then began the involutionary life of contemporary college students, and never had the opportunity to really get in touch with these aspects. He didn't expect that now he got what he wanted. Let's go. After handing the drawn star map to Professor Sinistra, William took Penelope to the 8th floor of the castle, the corridor outside the house where every wish is fulfilled. Where is this? Penelope looked at William in confusion. Look, this is the secret base I found. William walked quickly in front of the tapestry, thinking in his mind, I need an empty room as large as possible. After walking 3 times, a very smooth door quietly appeared on the wall. The space inside the door was as large as half of the Ravenclaw common room, and it was empty, without any furniture that would get in the way. This simply couldn't meet William's needs. Merlin's long riding boots. I never knew or imagined that there was such a place in Hogwarts. Penelope exclaimed as she walked into the door. Welcome to the room of requirement. William smiled proudly and began to take out a large number of equipment he needed from his bag, test tubes, beakers, flasks, funnels, balances, etc., as well as some more special generators and a heated stirring kettle. In the process, he accidentally knocked over a bookshelf, and a tattered pamphlet fell down. William finally remembered where he had seen the name Dr. John D. Thanks to Xiank Sinkeo for the monthly ticket. I didn't expect that I would get a lot of votes today just by mentioning the recommendation. I am very touched. And by the way, let me talk about the world expansion. First of all, there will be no existing works, games, novels, in this book. The rich elements of the world expansion will all come from various myths. The types and arrays of rune words will be continuously enriched, and large-scale machine production will gradually be realized. Chapter 56 A Pot of Heart Love. When William first went to Diagon Alley, he passed by a travel agency that tried to outwit tourists. Their brochure mentioned a project, Wandering in the Albanian Forest. Here, you can visit the site where the greatest necromancer in history, Dr. John D., once performed the necromancy ritual. It is said that standing on those extremely blasphemous black magic symbols that still exist today, you can even hear the wailing of tortured souls. William took out the brochure provided by the Horror Tour travel agency and read the text in a low voice. Have you heard of necromancy? William asked Penelope. He originally thought that necromancy was just a fabrication, but now he is not so sure. Well, Professor Bin seems to have mentioned it, but I am not very clear. Penelope held her chin with her right hand, recalled for a moment, and shook her head. Well, it seems that I can only write to this travel agency to ask. William temporarily put aside this idea. Tell me, what do you need me to do? Penelope looked at the shiny equipment curiously. Most of them were made of glass, reflecting beautiful luster under the light. I know you are good at potions, but I didn't know you were also a Heisenberg school. Heisenberg school. I remember that he called this style of using a large number of ordinary people's instruments in brewing potions according to strict proportions and steps as experimental school. William responded helplessly. But I think you should be able to use these equipment. Since you said you are also an experimental school, it doesn't make any difference. I did read his articles carefully, but this is the first time I really use them. But it shouldn't be a big problem. Penelope looked at the various utensils on the laboratory table. I need you to help me deal with these raw materials. The specific proportions and operation methods are all in this notebook. You will find that although they are relatively easy, they all require a lot of use. William turned to a marked page in the experimental notebook and handed it to Penelope. And this is the disinfectant and gloves. You will need them. He himself began to deal with the frozen fire ash snake eggs. This is a very dangerous raw material. Although the activity of the snake eggs he selected as raw materials has been completely eliminated, when they are cut open, a mass of hot mucus will still explode. If the skin is touched by these mucus without protection, it will not only be severely burned, but the wound will even be infected with a toxin. But these mucus are precisely the most valuable component of the fire ash snake eggs. The fire ash snake is a magical creature. Their eggs do not breed a fire ash snake larvae, but all of this mucus. Only when the fire ash snake eggs absorb enough heat and are about to break out of the shell will they quickly transform into snake form within a few seconds. In the request-responsive house, which was temporarily transformed into a potion workshop, no one spoke for a while. There was only the gurgling sound of boiling raw materials and the scratching sound of the pestle when grinding valerian. William, do you think that this ordinary method of boiling potions can really achieve better results? You know, Professor Snape never allows us to discuss this issue in class. Penelope broke the silence first. I thought your question was what kind of potion we were making, William chuckled. How should I put it? This question is actually a bit complicated. At the beginning, William began to use this method to brew potions, just because he was very dissatisfied with the units of handful, root, block, pinch in the textbook, so he adopted this method that he was more accustomed to in his previous life, so that he could record every adjustment he made to the formula. But as he got to know potions more deeply, William found that this technique was full of a lot of rough processing methods. For example, raw materials such as runispore teeth needed to be ground into very fine powder as much as possible so that they could be more fully absorbed by the decoction. This manual grinding method, even if the gorillas of the Cat and Panther Academy were asked to do it, or the process was accelerated by magic spells, the effect obtained would not be better than dragging out a wall-breaking machine. There are countless such cases in the raw material processing and processing of potions. After William introduced standardization, process and modernization for potions, he found that the effect of his finished potions was indeed significantly improved. After extraction, the raw materials with improved purity significantly shortened the time required to brew potions. More importantly, such a potion can be mass-produced. But I also found that if we simply replace the instruments of ordinary people and complete the entire process, even if the same raw materials are used throughout the process, the effect of the final product will be greatly reduced, and it may even become a pot of wastewater. William carefully tore a small hole in the snake egg and poured the mucus inside into a special container. I can only guess that the wizard himself still plays a vital role in the process of making the potion, you know, stirring with a wand when boiling, and sometimes chanting spells or something. He summarized his findings. So what potion are we making? Penelope asked casually while still digesting William's words. Of course it's a pot of hot love, a love potion. William tore the shell of the empty snake egg into pieces and put it in a basket, preparing to grind it later. Although Hogwarts cannot use electrical appliances, so he can't turn on the wall breaker, but through spells, he can still achieve a similar effect. What? Penelope almost dropped the pestle in his hand. Anxin is an adjusted love potion, you know. The authentic love potion requires you to add your own nails, hair and so on, which will make the person who drinks it fall in love with you hopelessly. To be honest, sometimes it is more terrible than poison. William took off his dragon leather gloves and walked over to help Penelope deal with the remaining ingredients. What we are making is not so much a love potion as perfume. In a love potion, the first part is responsible for providing the psychedelic effect, such as the juice of wormwood, the powder of love mushrooms, the crushed sage, etc. Boiling them until the medicinal properties permeate the whole pot of soup is originally the most time-consuming part of making love potions. Of course, we will not use any of these. The next part is the part that can provide it with color and fragrance, which is the fire ash snake eggs and eggshell fragments that I just processed. Of course, they also need to be neutralized to eliminate the small amount of hypnotic effect contained in them. The rest is the universal solution that gives them magic, and the white coral powder, lavender, and valerian that you are processing. These are all added to improve the skin. As they talked, William and Penelope had already processed most of the basic ingredients. They lit a fire in the room and added the ingredients one by one to a mixing kettle that was several times larger than a crucible. William stood up and began to wave his wand rhythmically above the mixing kettle, allowing his magic power to naturally and harmoniously drive the stirring of the potion. Time passed little by little. The potion in the mixing kettle gradually changed from brown at the beginning to clear green, and then to silver. But when William finally stirred it 9 times clockwise, it miraculously turned pink. It showed a wonderful mother-of-pearl luster, and the pink steam spiraled up slowly and finally turned into water vapor and evaporated. Compared with the original love potion, which focused more on the illusion of producing love, William's modified version was more prominent in fragrance and skincare. We succeeded, Penelope said excitedly. She closed her eyes and deeply savored the aroma of the potion. It perfectly inherited the property of the love potion that makes people smell the smell of their favorite things. No, We are still one step away. William shook his head. Thanks to 3-methylindole for the reward. Chapter 57. He gave too much? The last step, Penelope asked William in confusion. In her opinion, this pot of potion was already very close to perfection. As long as they were packaged into beautiful small glass bottles as perfume and put on the market, they would be able to exchange for a lot of gold galleons in no time. Those witches would definitely go crazy. More importantly, compared to the output of a crucible each time by other potion masters, this method of boiling directly increased the output several times. This also means a lower time cost. Yes, we have to dilute it. William took out a dozen test tubes, filled them with the original solution of the potion and sealed them. He handed half of the test tubes to Penelope. You can keep some for collection. You will find that the effect of this perfume is very significant. He closed the lid of the mixing kettle. What about the others? Penelope took out a test tube and carefully looked at the beautiful pink liquid inside. They are so effective, and we can't charge too high a price, or most witches won't be able to afford them. For the rest, I'll ask house elves to add them to cosmetics. You know, the ones that ordinary people use. Instead of selling them directly, William has already made very thorough considerations. After seeing this finished product, it is not difficult for a potion master like Snape to deduce William's formula as long as he is willing to spend some time and energy. But if they are mixed with a small amount of cosmetics commonly used by ordinary people, and some synthetic fragrances are added to sell them as a beauty potion. For Merlin's Scottish kilt. If Snape can still deduce it this way, then William will take the blame. Moreover, diluting this potion and adding it to daily chemicals will not only help William lower costs, expand scale, increase product lines, and quickly seize the wizard market. Even when his production reaches a certain level and the opportunity is ripe, he can also export goods to the ordinary people's market in reverse. For the existing brands on the market, whether it is Coco Chanel, Lancôme, or L'Oreal, after William's products are launched, there will undoubtedly be a dimensionality reduction attack. Whether it is artificially synthesized essences or naturally purified nourishing ingredients, they will never be qualified opponents in the face of the scent of aphrodisiacs that can directly reflect the smell of the most beloved things in people's hearts. Believe me, this will be a revolution, William said confidently. Penelope responded with a long yawn. When they cleaned up the mess and came out of the room of requirement, the sky was already turning pale. William saw Hogwarts at 4 in the morning. Fortunately, William had a class in the afternoon with Professor Kettleborn on the care of magical creatures, and the rest of the time was free. He could squander it to make up for his sleep and sleep until he woke up naturally. William and Penelope strode in the empty corridor, and all they could hear were footsteps and each other's slight breathing. Thank you, he said suddenly. Penelope was a little stunned at first, but soon she showed a beautiful smile. You're welcome. She seemed to want to say something, but turned her head to look at William's profile and shook her head. They soon arrived at the top of Ravenclaw Tower. Griffith turned around without saying a word. It's a little strange today, isn't it? We should answer its questions before we can enter the common room. Penelope's eyes went back and forth between William and Griffith, trying to find the reason why it behaved so abnormally. Good night, Penelope. William avoided the question. Good morning, William. Penelope smiled and waved to him, and her figure quickly disappeared at the corner of the corridor of the girls' dormitory. William also returned to the dormitory. He was so tired that he didn't even want to take off his robe, so he threw himself on the bed. Gabe, who was sleeping on a pillow, mumbled and made room for him. We need to open an experience store in Hogsmeade. Maybe we can rent the Shrieking Shack and let the house elves run it. Then we can contact Scott. I wonder if there is a suitable cosmetics factory in England that can do OEM. If not, we can acquire it. William fell asleep. He seemed to dream that he was in a dark place without light. William couldn't confirm whether he didn't open his eyes or it was just so dark here. But William didn't have the urge to struggle at all. Because he could feel that his whole body was immersed in a warm and sticky liquid, and his whole body was warm and safe. In pure darkness, the concept of time seemed to have completely lost its meaning. It seemed like a long time had passed. It seemed like just a moment. William suddenly woke up. How could it be? Sitting upright on the bed, William felt a deep doubt. Since he came to this world, he hasn't had any dreams for a long time, let alone such clear memories and such real feelings. Is this a precognitive dream? Or some kind of warning? Or some strange omen? William wanted to think of some mystical meaning to explain this strange dream, But this was not his area of expertise. The sound of the bed curtain being pulled open suddenly rang out. William realized that it was because of his reaction when he woke up from the dream. Just now that he woke up Jimmy. "What's wrong?" Jimmy's sleepy head with a messy hairstyle was exposed. "It's only," he said as he retracted his head and seemed to look at the watch, "7:30, nothing, I had a dream, you continue to sleep." William watched Jimmy pull the bed curtain click, and the rhythmic snoring sounded again almost the next second, but he didn't feel sleepy at all. All the fatigue accumulated last night seemed to be swept away by this strange dream. "It's getting more and more interesting," William thought. At the same time, in London, hundreds of miles away from Hogwarts Castle, an architect named Martin Anderson may be facing the most important choice in his life. He was sure that his house was haunted. What's worse is that he, a very devout believer, is actually seriously considering making a deal with this ghost. Because he gave too much? For God's sake, he made a cross on his chest. Mr. Anderson still remembers what happened yesterday morning. After sending his wife to work as usual, he took the newspaper and walked back home, and suddenly found a piece of parchment on the table. "This is not right." Mr. Anderson dared to swear. A few seconds ago, this piece of paper was definitely not here. He was nervous and immediately went to check the windows and doors of his house in detail, but he didn't find any signs of someone sneaking in. "This can't be a haunted place. We can't afford the exorcism fee, and it's not decent. We will be laughed at," he muttered, sat back at the table, and picked up the paper. It was a letter. "Dear Mr. Anderson, I have learned about your work experience and would like to hire you as the chief consultant for our project. If you are willing to accept this job, you will need to live in the city we specify and must strictly abide by the confidentiality regulations and not disclose the work content to any third party. You will be exposed to many unimaginable concepts or asked some seemingly absurd ideas during the work, but I hope you can understand the necessity and importance of it. If you intend to quit this job midway, we will recover the deposit and travel expenses provided for you." The purpose of the sender was very direct. Ridiculous. How can there be such a job? This is not a job, it is clearly imprisonment. Mr. Anderson was so angry that he suddenly wanted to laugh. For God's sake, how could any sane person think that he would be willing to do such an undignified job, and invite him in such a pretentious way? He wanted to tear the letter into pieces, but he picked it up and looked at the next line. "Your salary will be..." Mr. Anderson rubbed his eyes. He took a deep breath. He rubbed his eyes again. He looked at the letter again. "Your salary will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thanks to Bishu Zizé Rankson for the monthly ticket. I was delayed by something, sorry for the late update, so I will not continue the chapter, and send you a 2.5k word chapter. Please try not to support a book. Follow-up reading is really very important for a new book. Every round of recommendation promotion is based on the number of follow-up readings. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 58. Dumbledore failed. Mr. Anderson's faith was unwavering. He would go to church with his wife every week, and he was also active in donating money to those poor African children. But when he saw the salary, he felt that he was already a modernist. It's almost a millennium, and we don't have to understand those stories literally, right? Comforting himself, Mr. Anderson quickly walked out of the house and placed a bouquet of flowers on his mailbox as instructed in the letter. With an uneasy mood, he walked through the garden in front of his house, opened the door, strode into the dining room, and saw a thick envelope on the dining table. It was as if it had emerged from the air. There was only one sentence on the envelope. It was an address. Godric's Hollow. Mr. Anderson weighed the envelope. He soon became convinced that no matter who the devil was, the project he was asked to take charge of must be a big project. A very big project. "Looks like we're moving, aren't we?" He opened the bottle of 1981 Chateau Lion that he had collected for a long time and toasted himself easily. Although the sincerity in the envelope was enough for him to continue living in this house that he was supposed to move out before the end of the year, his thoughts had already drifted to a bigger house. Mr. Anderson, who was enjoying his own pleasant day, naturally didn't know that his employer was also in a good mood hundreds of miles away. In fact, Professor Kettleburn's class is not that bad, is it? On the way back to the castle from the hunting ground, William felt inexplicably relaxed. He originally thought that in this class he would have to fight with all kinds of strange and magical creatures, or feed the colorful and dangerous creatures, and at the same time avoid being regarded as food by them. But in this class, William had a very comfortable time. Under the guidance of Professor Kettleburn, all of them were divided into groups and sat around a campfire. They had to add some firewood to the fire from time to time, or pour a handful of water on the ashes when the snake eggs in the fire were too energetic. Last time, William froze the snake eggs too hard, so now he had to let them absorb heat and recover their vitality in this way. However, even though Professor Kettleburn kept watching in the middle, one group still successfully hatched 5 or 6 eggs, almost taking away 1/3 of his beard. The trouble has just begun. Looking at the castle, William couldn't help but feel a headache. After he commissioned an owl to consult a horror journey travel agency about Dr. John Dee, he went to the library again. This time he put the time much earlier and fortunately found his name. Unfortunately, he found it in a book called Those Notorious Black Wizards. The chapter before Dr. John Dee's name is Green-Toothed Jenny, a witch who loves to torture innocent people. She has green skin and sharp teeth like knives, and will drag the elderly and children into the water with witchcraft. But Dr. John Dee's nature is different. He was identified as a dark wizard because he stood on the wrong side. Dr. John Dee once graduated from Cambridge University and was the mystical advisor of Elizabeth I. He even contributed his knowledge of magic to the church. Dr. John Dee called the words he invented angel words and attributed the necromancy he created to God. But if we evaluate it only from the achievements, Dr. John Dee is almost no less than Nicholas Flamel. He created a school of magic and invented words with mystical meanings. It is said that he has awakened the souls of the dead and talked with them in the presence of many people. There is no doubt that in the field of soul-related, no one has studied more deeply than him. This is how the book evaluates his achievements. If Quirrell reads the manuscript, will he find something helpful to his master on it? William originally thought that with his understanding of the original book, he could easily get by in these 4 years. When Harry was still struggling with the Goblet of Fire, he was about to graduate from Hogwarts, and he could settle down in Paris, France or Heidelberg, Germany. In his previous life, when he was still Feng Rui, William liked that small town in southern Germany very much. But now, before the original story even began, a lot of trouble has already occurred. Professor Quirrell, who was originally a stutterer and neurotic, has now become a model teacher, and has also shown amazing personal charm. The 7 equal parts of his head are likely to have obtained precious information that can help him get rid of his weak residual soul state from his adventures. Old Voldemort is not good at dealing with rejections. William thought of the last time Voldemort's request was rejected. He cursed a position of the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts, so that the person in this position has not been able to spend a whole year. The entrance hall is already in sight. The aroma of dinner wafted from the auditorium in the distance. Even at a distance, William could still faintly hear the noisy conversation there. Something must have happened. A big thing. William walked quickly into the entrance hall and ran towards the auditorium. That man is back. Wasn't he defeated? Not necessarily him, it could be his men. Even Dumbledore failed. I guess it must be that woman Rita Skeeter who is talking nonsense. He was the same last time something happened. The loud whispering reached William's ears, making him wonder if he had slept for 2 or 3 days and missed too many things. On the long table of Ravenclaw, Penelope was waving at him. Her face was serious, and on the table in front of her was a magazine and a newspaper. It was not this morning's Daily Prophet. It was too thin. Besides, this morning's Daily Prophet didn't say anything valuable, except that a potion explosion occurred in Nocturne Alley, causing several casualties, and the Ministry of Magic called on wizards not to try unverified potion formulas. What happened? William sat over and asked her. She handed over the magazine. The magazine was turned to the first page, and the most eye-catching thing on it was a photo. On top of the broken limbs on the ground, a skull with a dim green fluorescence was swallowing a snake. That was Voldemort's symbol, the Dark Mark. In the corner of the photo, Dumbledore, with a serious face, raised his wand and propped up a silver barrier. Dumbledore didn't do it. The title of this article only had 4 words. Penelope handed over the Daily Prophet again. Just as William guessed, it was very thin and was obviously a special issue printed temporarily. Dark wizards attack Nocturne Alley, killing dozens of people. 4 words. Dumbledore didn't fix it. Thanks to the author of Jiangshan for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Quizik7 for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Changjiang for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Mr. A for the reward. Chapter 59. I stuffed money in, but it didn't seem like enough. Dark wizards attack Nocturne Alley, killing dozens of people. There was a very shocking headline in the middle of the front page. William hurriedly looked at the text of the report. Yesterday, a group of dark wizards who had been roaming around recently and causing many Muggle attacks suddenly kidnapped 9 Muggles and fled deep into Nocturne Alley. Led by Barty Crouch, Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement of the Ministry of Magic, and assisted by Albus Dumbledore, President of the International Confederation of Wizards and Chief Wizard of the Wizengamot, an elite team of Aurors successfully tracked down the house occupied by them and launched a decisive raid when they were holding a dark magic ceremony. According to an unknown insider, in this conflict, the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic killed 4 dark wizards including their leader on the spot, and the rest of the party escaped the scene after a brief resistance. Then there were several photos that had been processed but still looked bloody. It was obvious that they had encountered something very horrible before they died. At present, the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic are searching for the escaped dark wizards. Barty Crouch, Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, assures the public that this incident is just a ridiculous attempt by a few dark wizards to spread fear by borrowing the name of the Dark Lord. Please do not believe in some media that hope to sensationalize. Regarding Harry Potter, the boy who defeated the Dark Lord who must not be named, please check page 2. Winter Smalls, Editor-in-Chief of Whisper, was admitted to the Magic Injury Department of St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Injuries and Maladies today. Please check page 3. Special Correspondent Rita Skeeter reports for you. The Daily Prophet obviously has a meaning. To be honest, this whole report gave William a feeling that the Ministry of Magic must have given money, but it seemed that it was not given enough. If they did not give money, then the Aurors described by Rita Skeeter would never be successful pursuit or decisive raid, but reckless action and stupid decision. But if she had stuffed enough, she would never write a headline that looked like a dark wizard would set up a resistance organization in Nocturne Alley tomorrow. William, do you think it's true? That person, Penelope asked worriedly. She tightly grasped the magazine, and her knuckles turned slightly white under the candlelight in the sky. She was born an ordinary person. William remembered what she said on the train. I believe Professor Dumbledore will explain it later. But if you really want me to guess, I will choose to believe the Ministry of Magic more. William shook his head. He finally knew why Dumbledore looked tired yesterday. That magazine, Whisper, was originally just an unknown gossip magazine, but suddenly published such a news with only one photo, and coincidentally spread quickly, forcing the Daily Prophet to publish a special edition to refute the rumor. Its purpose was only one: spread fear. William looked at Professor Quirrell on the right side of the teacher's seat. He was holding his hands together in front of him, with his head slightly lowered, as if studying the pattern on the wooden table. Could it be you? William thought, but he was not quite sure. Just before the whispering in the whole hall was about to turn into open conspiracy, and before Gryffindor and Slytherin were about to really fight, Dumbledore's figure finally appeared at the door of the hall. He was wearing a dark purple robe covered with silver stars, with a serious expression, and walked into the hall without saying a word. The whole hall fell silent. Dumbledore walked to his seat and looked around. I believe that all of you are waiting for my answer, he said. As reported in the Daily Prophet, I assisted the Ministry of Magic in tracking down the whereabouts of that small group of dark wizards, and successfully blocked them in one of their strongholds deep in Nocturne Alley, but we were still a step too late. Dumbledore sighed. When I arrived, they had already completed some extremely blasphemous black magic ritual, and the price was the lives of 9 Muggles who were controlled by them with the Imperious Curse. During the battle, the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic and I killed 3 of them, but just before we were about to break their defense, their leader used a powerful black magic. He hesitated for a moment before continuing, we have no reason to suspect that the man who cannot even be named has returned. A dark mark does not mean anything. Crazy dark wizards will use any means to scare us. We did not find the dark mark on the 4 dark wizards who were killed. As you know, Voldemort will engrave that evil mark on the right arm of his followers. Dumbledore suddenly mentioned the name of the Dark Lord, causing almost everyone to shudder unconsciously. The Death Eaters engraved that evil mark on their right arms as a sign of their submission to him. I want to assure all of you that you will be safe at Hogwarts. With the help of the professors and the many protective spells of this ancient castle, I will do my best to protect all of you. We still have Harry Potter, someone suddenly shouted at the Gryffindor table. William saw that the person who spoke was a dark-skinned boy. William had seen him during the sorting ceremony. It seemed that his last name was Thomas. His words triggered many people's responses. Yes, we have Harry Potter, Potter the Savior. The hall was temporarily immersed in a sea of cheers. It seemed that no one was worried about the Dark Devil at this moment. But William still noticed that Dumbledore's expression did not ease because of this. He must have something important that he had not announced. The black magic that could make Dumbledore give up the pursuit and let them escape must have both a great range and terrifying power, which would force a powerful white wizard like him to choose to concentrate on defense. Maybe something should happen, like a breeze that blows just when only Dumbledore and Quirrell are present, to tear off the garlic-scented scarf. William made up his mind secretly. In addition to exploring the mysteries of magic, completing small goals, and building dumplings, he must find an opportunity to add some color to Professor Quirrell's life. After finishing this speech, Professor Dumbledore sat back. Dinner was going on as usual, even though the Gryffindor table not far away was still discussing the Savior Star fiercely. The Ravenclaw table had returned to calm. After the meal, the house elf told William about the architect Mr. Anderson, which made him feel a little better. As for the cosmetics factory that William entrusted Scott to contact, there was also new progress. Mr. Buffalo, Mr. Scott hopes that I can tell you that there is a 5-hour time difference between London and New York, Lalo reported to William a little embarrassedly. Finally, the first week has been successfully completed. There are many things to be laid, many clues to be dug in advance, and in order to make the first volume more exciting, I have to enrich Quirrell's character. The next part will be the exciting part, the duel club, the press conference, dumplings, the forbidden forest, the small goal, and more undisclosed plots, etc., so stay tuned. And this black magic actually appeared in the original book, but it was very inconspicuous. Part 3, please keep reading. Thank you for the monthly ticket of Yuan Wang Suiyu. Chapter 60 Nymph. Although Scott was extremely dissatisfied with William's behavior of calling him around 8 or 9 in London time every time, there was no stockbroker's complaint in this world that could not be solved by adding money. If there was, it meant that the money was not added enough. The dark mark was like a stone thrown into the black lake. It stirred up waves for a while, but it would eventually sink to the bottom of the lake. It was just a small episode. Life at Hogwarts continued. In addition to weekly classes, William had to spend a lot of time in the library. Fortunately, he had learned Latin in the United States, which greatly helped him to reduce the difficulty of learning French. The architect Mr. Anderson and his family have moved to Godric's Hollow, an area where ordinary people and wizards live together, and a large number of spells are released every day. It is precisely because of this that the house elf Lalo can communicate more conveniently in real time through letters. Although there are many owls flying around in this ghost place in broad daylight for some reason, and they are not afraid of people at all, Mr. Anderson quickly adapted to his new job and began to draw construction drawings day and night. Except that there was something wrong with his employer. Even though there was something wrong with his employer. Under William's preparation, soft articles with titles such as Sharing Witch Beauty Tips, Today's Witch Beauty Recommendation, and Mysterious Beauty Formula from Across the Ocean began to appear in various magazines in the British wizarding world. The content, protagonists, and emphasis of these articles may be different, but most of them are in the tone of a witch's self-narration, telling that she recently used a beauty potion brand called Nymph from the United States, and the products are very rich. From daily facial masks and scrubs, to skincare lotions, moisturizers, and toners, to foundation, powder, eyeliner for makeup, and the main perfume. Everything is available. At the end of the article, most of them will casually mention that Nymph will open its first experience store in Hogsmeade soon, introducing their products to the British wizarding world for the first time. It seemed that overnight, the concept of beauty, which was completely new to wizards, was promoted. It seemed that the pursuit of beauty potions by British witches had suddenly progressed from curing herpes to becoming beautiful. The slogan of the Nymph brand, "Elegance is a choice for witches," became popular in the entire wizarding world. Many anxious wizards even contacted their friends in the American wizarding world, but they were even more confused than the British wizards. What's going on? What's going on? How can we deal with this? We haven't heard of this thing either. Even the magazines were confused. They received such a business order for the first time in history. The wording was elegant, the content was high quality, and it was clearly a selfless sharing attitude. The editors didn't even know how to price such an excellent experience report sharing. In the previous experience, wizards often spontaneously promoted a new potion, such as the magical shampoo that the Potters once launched, which could make very stubborn hair smooth, and suddenly became famous. But William, the initiator of Nymph, was finally glad that he didn't need to write soft articles in the format of a certain red book. The magazine only charged him a small fee because it was difficult to define whether the article belonged to advertisement or submission. The products come from the hard work of several OEM factories. Thanks to the worsening economy in the UK, they can receive orders at this moment, which is something to thank God for. As for the small and somewhat strange requirements of the client, there will naturally be no problem. William set the opening time of the Nymph Hogsmeade Experience store on Sunday, and he was already feeling a little impatient. After adding the adjusted aphrodisiacs to ordinary beauty products and determining the content in various products according to the effects, he asked Penelope to help produce 2 batches. William also consulted Professor Dumbledore, and after learning that the property of the Shrieking Shack was actually owned by Hogwarts, he rented it here. The Weasley brothers and their friends have been working overtime to complete the interior decoration with transfiguration these days. In addition, in order to guard against some potion masters with particularly sharp noses and unpleasant personalities, William also prepared some other potions as a cover and mixed them in. It is worth mentioning that the Slytherin Students' Union president, Dilito Yaxley, found William when he brought Gabe to cheer for Jimmy's team selection. "I have always wanted to meet you, William Buffalo." On Saturday afternoon, Dilito sat next to William on his own. He has black hair and a tall stature, but unfortunately his gloomy expression and hooked nose that almost reached his upper lip greatly damaged his appearance. "I thought a Slytherin would at least know the courtesy of introducing himself first." William did not turn his head to look at him, but concentrated on teasing Gabe with a piece of chocolate. The little guy was tempted by the cunning Jimmy with a full 3 pounds of chocolate frogs, and in the morning, he resolutely got into William's shoulder bag. "Of course you know who I am." "Everyone knows who I am," Delit laughed. "I know that you and that Faloe are doing something small, so I came to you with sincerity today." Although he was laughing, William felt that it was like a lizard sticking out its tongue and looking for its next victim. Those 2 idiots, Montague and Flint, it's not their turn to educate you anyway, but they want to show that they are important and cunning, so they should be punished, Delit said slowly. "Montague has learned enough lessons in the academy. As for Flint, it's the Flint family's business. We give him the respect he deserves. But I have written a letter to Mr. Flint, and I believe it will make Marcus change his mind. So you come to me to apologize?" William sneered in response. "Of course it's not Montague and Flint's fault, because they are not qualified," Delit said, qualified with an especially long tone. "To be honest, I understand you. If we were in another situation, maybe we would really become good friends, but you come from that kind of place, so you naturally don't know. In Hogwarts, in the UK, we have a set of rules that have been used for a long time, and it will continue to be maintained." "So what?" William believed that White was going to tell the purpose of his visit. Mr. Scrimgeour, of course, if you have heard of him. He has promised me that I can directly enter the Ministry of Magic and work for him after I graduate. That woman Farley will certainly be punished, but if I were you, I would know to stop in time and save some dignity for myself. Thank you Aspirin for the monthly ticket. Thank you 3 Methylindole for the reward. The original text did not mention the ownership of the Shrieking Shack, but I think that since Lupin can go in and have fun, it should be owned by Hogwarts. Chapter 61, A Hot Pot of Love. On the east side of the 4th floor of the castle. In a secret passage. "You promised him?" Gemma looked at William with a half-smile and teased. "If you do this again, maybe I will consider it." William shook his head helplessly. "Yaxley spent a lot of energy to contact, but I bet everything on today and on you. Don't let me down." Gemma stopped and looked at William. "Don't forget the strategy we practiced. Believe in me and believe in yourself." William met her eyes and nodded in response. They were not idle this week. In addition to spending a lot of time discussing and practicing tactics, Gemma also found a manuscript about rune words for William. "We will pass," Gemma said solemnly. "We want more than just passing." William walked in front. He also wanted to win. "Go out of this secret passage and turn a corner, and you will reach the activity venue of Professor Flitwick's Spell Duel Club. This is a very spacious classroom. Rather than a classroom, it would be more appropriate to call it a ballroom. In the middle of the room, there was a large open space, surrounded by many shelves filled with various sundries. Books, targets, mats, etc. Professor Flitwick stood in the middle of the room, and the official members of the club lined up behind him. William saw the annoying Yaxley, who was standing behind Professor Flitwick to the right. Others who wanted to join the club also arrived one after another and stood in a small circle. They were all senior students from various colleges. "Welcome," Professor Flitwick clapped his hands. Everyone looked at him. "All of you have been constantly preparing and enriching yourself to achieve the achievements you have made so far," Professor Flitwick paced and said as he walked. "Wizard duel is an extremely ancient skill, or a kind of inheritance. There is no doubt that you will face many difficult challenges, magical creatures, curses, and dark magic. But I can assure you that in this world, your most dangerous opponents will always be other wizards." He took out his wand and pointed it at the ground. Fiantodori, immovable, the silver light shone. All the walls and ground that were illuminated by this light suddenly had a faint metallic luster. Professor Flitwick directed the spell in front of him again. Protegomotor, Protegomotor. Many bright silver translucent shields were summoned by him and floated towards the students present, whether they were formal members or William who wanted to join. As a glorious tradition of the club, tonight's entrance examination is divided into 2 parts. Professor Flitwick cleared his throat and began to explain. To join Professor Flitwick's club, William must first prove himself in a single duel. They soon received their own number balls from Professor Flitwick. William's opponent in the first round was a 7th-year Slytherin student. His last name was Rosier. "Be careful of his evil curse, it's very powerful," Gemma whispered to William. She and William wished her good luck. "Let's start," Professor Flitwick said excitedly. The opponents of each game took turns to stand in the center of the field. Bow, salute. Percy was in the first place, but he drew the one named Yaxley. Yaxley threw a handful of black feathers from his pocket, and then quickly flicked his wand, turning them into many vultures, which flew towards Percy fiercely and attacked. But when Percy panicked and gave up the original spell, and instead held up the armor spell to prepare for a counterattack, Yaxley's powerful explosion spell was ready. He easily defeated Percy's defense in one fell swoop. Now it was finally William's turn. He and a boy named Rosier stood in the middle of the field, bowed to each other, and then walked back, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Defindo, a flash of red light suddenly appeared. Rosier's Defindo spell took only half a breath. This must have been practiced countless times, and he was so skilled that the spell was engraved in his mind. Protego, William turned around quickly, swung his wand downward, and a silver shield suddenly appeared in front of him. Zhang, a sharp sound of breaking through the air was heard, followed by a muffled sound. William's armor spell barely resisted Rosier's attack, but it also shattered in the air and turned into many silver light dust. Confringo, Expulso, the spells sounded almost at the same time. William was somewhat relieved. He was not standing on the left when the wave was facing each other. After the flying sand and rocks he used shot out, his wand trembled slightly, and a beam of light shot out in the next moment. Protego, then William raised his wand lightly, and just before the red light was about to touch his body, he just raised the barrier. Compared to his calmness, Rosier was a little flustered when facing the 2 consecutive spells from William. He jumped to the side in a very embarrassed manner, and after standing still, he chanted the spell Nebula. Water mist quickly squeezed out from the top of his wand, completely hiding his figure and making it impossible to see with the naked eye. Tisk, William cursed inwardly. If Rosier had been a little slower, his spell would have been ready. William casually threw out a handful of buttons that he had prepared in advance, Verto. Before the buttons landed on the ground, they turned into a group of crows, circling around William, making noisy cries. Empty eyes. They didn't look very smart. Confringo, the red light approached William with a shrill sound of breaking through the air. This time Rosier had more time to prepare, spent more magic power, and was extremely powerful. Apugno, William pointed his wand at the mist where Rosier was hiding, and whispered a spell. The crows he transformed suddenly seemed to be crazy, and rushed violently towards the red light of the thunder explosion. The sound of puff continued. Every crow touched by the red light was squeezed into a ball of black ash that could not be distinguished under the power of the violent magic, and dissipated into the air. When William used the transfiguration, he greatly weakened their mental state, making them stupid, but in return, they had a very large number of people. The crows almost used their flesh and blood to flatten Rozier's spell, and the remaining small group was still under the effect of the spell and crashed into the mist. Incursors Maxima, William waved his wand, and several thin ropes appeared out of thin air, quickly forming an encirclement. Soon the mist dissipated. I give up. Get out of here. Get out of here. Rozier pointed his wand up to the sky, making a red mark. His other hand was waving above his head, trying to drive away a crow that was sitting there, pecking at his scalp desperately. Several other crows were hanging on his body, constantly stretching their beaks to bite his exposed skin. Mr. Buffalo. Professor Flitwick looked at William. Finite, stop. William waved his wand, and all the crows turned back into buttons, falling to the ground. Professor McGonagall will definitely be proud of you, Professor Flitwick said with a smile, motioning William to stand behind and let the next challenger come up. Even in our 5th year class, there are not many people who can transform as quickly as you do, and it's a specious transformation, Gemma whispered to William. At this time, the next group of challenges had begun. I think her more likely reaction would be, Mr. Buffalo, why don't your crow's eyes move and look like buttons? William was sure that Professor McGonagall really had high hopes for him, otherwise, in this week's class, she shouldn't have asked him to turn a little white mouse into a pair with triangular spots, and make it smart enough to do a backflip on the desk. It's not difficult, Buffalo. You just haven't paid enough attention. As she said, she casually tapped the little white mouse with her wand, and it turned into a strawberry with star-shaped spots as big as William's fist. The strawberry even opened her mouth and sang Celestina Warbeck's A Hot Pot of Love to them in a hoarse voice without a single word on the tune. Oh, come and stir my pot of soup. If you cook it right, I will make a hot love, to keep you warm tonight. For Merlin's sake, the pot must be full of onions and peppers. William felt a little chilled when he thought of the strawberry's voice. He shook his head and tried to roughly throw the content of this week's Transfiguration class out of his mind. I'm afraid Merlin would know how the strawberry turned the popular song, A Hot Pot of Love, into the horror movie soundtrack, A Hot Pot of Love. Let's take a break and give our brains a chance to breathe. Professor Flitwick stood in the center of the venue, clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention, and announced loudly, I think, why not use this time to let me tell the story of the dueling club? How many people here have heard of the Silver Spear? He looked at the challengers expectantly. Unfortunately, no one raised their hands. Well, it's been too long, and few people have heard of this name, Professor Flitwick sighed. It's a very old club, founded about 200 years ago. They only invite and recruit wizards who hold popular wands, and share knowledge with everyone without reservation, no matter what type, duels, spells, transfiguration. When I was young, I met one of their members in the final of a duel competition. I have to admit that it was probably the most difficult duel I have ever experienced. As he spoke, a sighing expression appeared on his face. I was as young as you, until, thank you for aspirin's monthly ticket. Thank you for the reward of 3 methylindole. Thank you for the monthly ticket of Xianx Syncao. Thank you for your recommendation votes and comments every day. Ying. Because I feel that the content and tone of the original Duel Club are somewhat deviated, I have made some adjustments to the original content and merged 2 chapters, 60, 61. Sorry. Chapter 62 I was once as young as you. I was once as young as you, until, Professor Flitwick sighed. Upon hearing this, William subconsciously looked at Professor Flitwick's knee. There was no arrow wound there, and he seemed to have never been married, at least he had never worn a wedding ring. After I used what was perhaps the most exciting fainting to date, I finally won the game with difficulty. After that, he invited me to the 3 Broomsticks in Hogsmeade to have a chat. Of course, at that time, the 3 Broomsticks was not owned by the beautiful Rosmerta, and I ordered a glass of sherry juice soda with ice and a conch. Professor Flitwick smacked his lips. Ah, of course, you won't be interested in these trivial matters, he smiled. He invited me to visit one of their activities, which was very similar to today. I have to say, they are all very idealistic people. He nodded. Did you join later? A boy asked. Ah, Macmillan, you are really like your father. He is always anxious to know the answer. I was just about to say that. Professor Flitwick waved his hand. At that time, the headmaster of Hogwarts was Professor Gippet. You may have heard of him, or you may not. His style has always been very strict. I just accepted his invitation and will end my youthful wanderings and do some more meaningful work in the ancient castle of Hogwarts. He smiled. He is an old-fashioned man. Many people hate him, whether they are pure blood or not. Some people even say that it is because of his indulgence in that person that a mysterious man will eventually be. Gemma whispered in William's ear. Later, that friend wrote to me and said that they decided to participate in a great cause. If everything goes well, it can even change the future of the wizarding world. After that, I haven't heard of their whereabouts. It is to commemorate them that I founded this club, Professor Flitwick said with some regret. Well, I think you have had enough rest, he cheered up and said with a smile. Of course, Professor, the young wizards answered. Everyone, come around. Professor Flitwick began to explain the rules of the second round of challenges to them. A real duel is never a one-person thing. You need to trust your partner. Be sure to remember our tactics, William whispered to Gemma. Don't worry, I won't forget. I've been practicing silent spells during the past 2 days when I sleep. The most important part is you. Whether you can catch them by surprise depends on you, Gemma nodded, and said with some concern, we only have one chance, we only need one chance, William responded decisively. Professor Flitwick's explanation has come to an end. Buffalo, fair, shall we start with you? Professor Flitwick asked William. Of course, Professor. William and Gemma stood on one side of the venue, and more than a dozen official members of the club stood opposite them waiting. They would only use common spells to attack, and would not use their full strength. Unless someone was doing something bad. Your goal is to show me your cooperation. Finally, never forget the 3 Ds, purpose, determination, and calmness. Professor Flitwick patted William and Gemma's arms. He wanted to pat their shoulders, but he was too short and could only pat their arms. Good luck to you. Professor Flitwick strode away from the center of the circle in the center of the venue and stood at the edge. William and Gemma, as well as the dozen or so official members in front of them, bowed to each other, saluted, and stepped back, 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Silencio, Gemma pointed her wand at the ceiling. The skill of the silent spell erased the time she had to cast. A translucent elliptical barrier quickly spread out, engulfing everyone, including William. She shortened the duration, and the result was naturally a powerful effect. Mass silence. The spells that the senior students had already recited halfway were stuffed back into their stomachs. But William's silent spell was ready. Lumus Solemn Maxima. William closed his eyes, raised his wand, and used the strongest light spell he could master at the moment. A sun rose from the top of his wand, emitting a dazzling light. Do you believe in light? Ah, damn it, destroy it. What are you thinking, Verdo? The official members responded in a panic. Including Professor Flitwick, no one present expected that William would use such an effective tactic, and they were caught off guard for a while. Finite, terminate, a senior student responded quickly. The sun was extinguished. But Gemma's next silent spell was already brewing. They spent a lot of time, repeatedly studying how to win this challenge. Even if we get the upper hand, we won't be able to handle so many of their attacks, Gemma Farley said worriedly. Those who can join Professor Flitwick's club are all senior students, and the grades must be very high in the class. If we want to defeat them through conventional magic attack and defense, the professor must come in person. What if we use unconventional attack and defense? William suddenly had an idea. What are you talking about? Gemma asked in confusion. Of course we must make them afraid to act rashly, you know, to create a bait for us. No, it should be said that a target. William snapped his fingers. You must attack the taunting follower. Gemma raised her wand and pointed it in front of her. She excitedly cast a spell, Accio Yaxley. Yaxley flies over, for the sake of Merlin's pantyhose. Yaxley had no experience at all in this duel. He was preparing a powerful curse, and was about to say it, but was suddenly interrupted, and then a dazzling sun rose in front of him. Yaxley reacted quickly and used spell stop to extinguish the sun, but then he felt a strong pulling force pulling him to the opposite side. The time was too short, leaving Yaxley with almost no time to think. Moreover, even if he had time to think and cast a silent spell stop, he couldn't put up any decent resistance. He watched himself approaching Gemma quickly. Then Gemma waved her wand and cancelled the flying spell, and Yaxley fell face first onto the floor reinforced with magic. But Yaxley's torture was not over yet. He was caught by William. That's right. Caught. William grabbed the back of his robe with one hand, like he was pulling a shield or a mop, and grabbed one of Yaxley's legs with the other hand. He even shook it hard, not knowing whether it was intentional or not. William's body was glowing with a faint silver light. To be honest, he himself did not expect things to go so smoothly at first. He and Gemma thought that Yaxley might not be able to react to the flying spell in the first time, but he could still use other spells to delay the process later. If that happened, William would need to use Glacier or Thorns to suppress the opponent. But now, when Gemma Yaxley flies, William only did one thing: strengthen himself. Strengthen. Rune words activated. William felt as if he had endless strength in his body, and he easily grabbed Yaxley and charged forward. "William," Gemma exclaimed subconsciously. But she soon realized that although this method seemed reckless, it was very effective. Finite, Gemma immediately switched to repeatedly using the spell of stopping. Seeing that Yaxley was used as a weapon, the seniors immediately fell into panic. William hid behind him and blocked himself tightly. If he used the evil spell, William would definitely not be the unlucky one. Many people fell into hesitation. "Protego," a senior boy shouted the spell. The silver light flickered, trying to form a barrier, but it was violently broken by William the next second. They were too close, and such a short time was not enough for it to form a strong enough defense. Wingardium Leviosa, Rosier's levitation spell just flickered, and was immediately interrupted by Gemma's spell of stopping. It existed, but it seemed not to exist. Impedimenta, Reducto, two red beams fell on Yaxley, and a silver barrier appeared, blocking them. "Are you crazy? Do you want to kill me?" Drit Yaxley gasped and asked loudly. "For Merlin's sake, the shield charm only has one chance to work." Tisk. The two Gryffindor seniors who cast the spell looked at each other, and a smile of deep guilt appeared on their faces. William had already rushed to the person closest to him. "Relatio," Professor Flitwick whispered the spell. William had to let go quickly. The Students' Union president fell to the ground. "A wonderful duel," Professor Flitwick said in a shrill voice. He clapped his hands, walked happily to the center of the venue, and patted William's arm. Yaxley's face was as ugly as if he had swallowed a fly alive, and he stared at William more gloomily. It seemed that he wanted to kill him with his eyes. Professor Flitwick smiled and said, "Enervit, you will have enough time to rest. Now almost no one is willing to practice rune spells. Many people think they are too cumbersome and difficult to master. I have a notebook here. You can come to my office when you are free." It was left by the professor of the ancient magic class. "But I still think that Latin spells are much more flexible and powerful." He blinked. "Thank you, Professor." William felt his strength coming back little by little. After the duel, he cancelled the enhancement effect to avoid a tragedy like the unfortunate little white mouse. Even so, William still felt an irrepressible fatigue. "If I use it on myself again, I will be a pig," William swore secretly. "Thank you 3-methylindole for the monthly ticket. Thank you Jun Muxio and others for the monthly ticket. Thank you King Kwangyan for the monthly ticket. Thank you Duing Kong Zibi for the monthly ticket. Thank you 3-methylindole for the reward. Thank you Meng Chihiro for the reward. Thanks to 3-methylindole for the character reward. Oh my god." Because the original content of Duel Club did not fit the tone, after discussing with the editor, the chapters 62, 63, were merged and revised. Chapter 63 Tournament. After officially joining Professor Flitwick's dueling club, William finally understood why he set such a high threshold for application. "You know, it's more of a communication platform than a dueling club. We meet at least every 2 to 3 weeks, one of the two Gryffindor boys who had previously attacked Yaxley with a curse said to William. "We share something every time, whether it's a spell, transfiguration, or your thoughts. As long as you think it's valuable and you discovered it yourself, it's fine." "Won't there be people who only share useless knowledge?" William asked. "Under this mechanism, free riders are almost inevitable, because there is no mandatory reward and punishment mechanism. It all depends on self-consciousness, and it is entirely possible that there will be stingy people who only listen to others share valuable knowledge but don't spend a penny themselves. Of course, but, you see, there are only so many of us here, and we are actually familiar with each other," the boy replied. William immediately realized that in such a small enclosed circle, free riding behavior, even if it is theoretically feasible, will soon be squeezed out by other members. The members of the club are all the best in each college. Even if they cannot become colleagues in the future, they will be very valuable interpersonal resources. There is no need to do something petty even at this time. Such a fool will hardly pass Professor Flitwick's challenge. Then why is this place called the Dueling Club? Gemma found the key to the problem. You will know soon. The boy winked and did not answer. I am George Barton, Cry Finder. To be honest, I think you have done a good job. We have always hated that guy, but, he spread his hands. He should be the one who is closest to getting a place among us. The next competition will be next year. I just hope that my ranking will not be too bad by then, another boy interrupted. By the way, I am Walton Taylor, Cry Finder. You did a great job. I have wanted to do this for a long time. Yes, the previous boy nodded. Okay, I believe you have all rested enough. Come and exercise your brains. Professor Flitwick called them over. Many chairs have been arranged in the circular area in the center of the venue. William and his friends walked over and found an empty seat to sit down. Gray, you start the sharing this semester, right? Professor Flitwick looked at a boy. I'm honored, Professor. He stood at the center of the circle and pulled out his wand. What I want to share is the experience I have accumulated when using the stunning spell. In William's opinion, this sharing activity is actually very close to the form of a future TED speech. The boy talked about how he adjusted the movement of his wrist, changed the syllables of the spell, or added suffixes to affect the effect of the stunning spell. You see, if you press your wrist down when casting a spell, and then quickly raise it, the speed of the stunning spell will be very fast. Of course, as a price, the power will be weaker. But this little effort is still worth it. The boy finished his sharing. Everyone applauded him. Next was a Ravenclaw girl, William Sr. The topic she shared was skills for quick transfiguration. Professor McGonagall mentioned in class that transfiguration is a skill that is only taught in the NIT's advanced class at Hogwarts. She explained how to maintain the high efficiency of transfiguration while taking into account details by presetting anchored impressions in the mind and constantly enriching their details. You will notice that when you repeatedly enrich the details of an object in your mind and imagine its picture, when this impression is so deep that you even think of it subconsciously, she waved her wand quickly. Verdo, the chair next to her suddenly changed into a mighty lion. Its details were so real, the fangs, claws, and mane were all like a living lion, and even the abdomen would sink and bulge with breathing. Roar, the lion let out a loud roar. If it were not for its color and flesh, William would have thought that the lion was a flesh patroness. But how can you make the impression of a specific desired thing, rather than something you are familiar with, so deeply implanted? A boy raised his hand to ask a question. I do like my Irene very much and I am very familiar with her, but if I can only transform it in a duel, it can't even beat Mrs. Norris. To be honest, this is a very embarrassing thing for a Labrador. His words made many people laugh. Emotions are always the most important. The girl who shared shook her head. Maybe you can try to cultivate feelings with that creature? Of course, it doesn't necessarily need to be love. Sometimes, having a strong fear will work better. The girl sat back. At this time, Professor Flitwick stood up. He came to the middle of the venue, drew a circle with his wand, and a blackboard appeared beside him. On the blackboard was a complex table, with names on the vertical axis. He knocked on the blackboard again, and the table on it suddenly seemed to come alive, squeezing upwards to make a small space. William and his names appeared at the bottom. Obviously, the sharing session ended here. The chairman of the World Wizard Duel Championship, Mr. Willman, announced that the new competition will be held in August next year, and the venue will be in Paris, France, Professor Flitwick announced happily. The tournament is held every 3 years. As the former consecutive champion and the special guest of the tournament, I have a recommendation quota, which can directly send one of you to become one of the top 16 in the young group. He looked around at everyone present. This year's young group champion prize money is as much as 2,500 gold galleons, and as the organizer of this year, Bugsbutton's Academy has generously provided a surprise prize. It is said that it is an alchemical tool made by their honorary school director Nicholas Flamel. Hiss. William heard many people around him gasping. All wizards under the age of 22 can sign up for the young group competition, but if anyone wants to get my recommendation, they must be the strongest among you. Professor Flitwick raised his head and said proudly. He began to explain the rules of the points competition. But no one was listening seriously anymore. Even William no longer cared about those things. It's interesting, William felt that his spirits were lifted up all of a sudden. Those gold galleons were good, but they were not important. What really interested him was the opportunity to fight with more wizards. As for the rules, who cares about that? He just needs to win every game. Thanks to Isra for the monthly ticket. Thanks to Zyank Sinkeo for the monthly ticket. Thanks to 3 Methylindole for the reward. Summer Vacation Copy PS. I always thought it was boring that the club in the original book only mentioned the Goblin Club, and the duel competition was only mentioned in name. Let's enrich it. Harry didn't get invited because his grades were not ideal. Hermione's grades were ideal, but she was not good at wizard duels. Chapter 64. It's here. On the east side of the 4th floor of the castle. Professor Flitwick's Dueling Club. Then let's stop here today. Professor Flitwick clapped his hands. Good night, students. Remember to return to the dormitory early, otherwise Mr. Filch might have a problem. Good night, Professor Flitwick. William and the others said in unison, stood up and left the classroom. They only had one game tonight, and each activity after that would require 3 duels. Perhaps because of his embarrassing performance in the challenge, Yaxley left directly after easily defeating his opponent. Fortunately, no one misses him, right? Gemma said with a smile. You won't let him go too easy, will you? William asked casually. The hateful stare that Yaxley gave him before he left made him feel uncomfortable. That look was as cold and wet as a lizard's tongue scratching his skin, and William almost had goosebumps. He will at least get what he deserves. Gemma nodded and said, Slytherin is actually not as united as it seems. Some people think they are pure enough, but some people think they are not so pure yet. Although they will not stand up directly, Slytherin has and can only have one voice when it comes to the outside world. It sounds very tiring. William shook his head. Well, Gemma tilted her head, as if she was thinking carefully, and as if she was looking at William's profile. After a moment, she answered very seriously, I don't have a strong obsession with bloodline or anything like that. But if you ask me, I really like this atmosphere in Slytherin. There are goals, wisdom, persistence, and flexibility. I believe other people will have different opinions, but other people's opinions are not important, Gemma replied. On a gambling table, only the winner's words count. Slytherin has won the College Cup for a very long time in a row, so much so that I am almost used to the hall being decorated in silver and emerald green at the end of term dinner. This is true. William remembered that if Professor Dumbledore had not given too many points to Granger in the last few minutes of the House Cup at the end of the term, Slytherin would still have won the House Cup that year. Well, good night, she said with a smile. Good night, William said goodbye to her. Just before going to the 3rd floor, William suddenly saw the corridor that Professor Dumbledore mentioned at the beginning of the school year. It seems that there is no mirror there now, William thought. Although there is no mirror there, there is still something left by Nicholas Flamel for him, although he doesn't know what it is. Since you are here, let's go and see. William walked over there. When he decided to end this not so wonderful but good night with a night tour, Hermione's mentality was about to collapse. For Merlin's sake, she was only in the 2nd week of school, but she was already facing the risk of being expelled from school. It's all thanks to these 2 idiots. If someone can come to help. She carefully huddled in the corner, hoping to hear the footsteps outside the room slowly going away, thinking. During dinner, Hermione accidentally heard that Malfoy wanted to have a wizard duel with Harry in the trophy room. This would obviously lead to them deducting all the points she won from the Transfiguration class, so naturally they should stop it. But Hermione didn't expect that she chased the 2 idiots all the way out of the common room. And when she wanted to go back, she found that the portrait of the fat lady had disappeared. She went out to visit someone. Everything was a mess after that. They picked up Neville, who forgot the password and was left outside the door, and came to the trophy room, but found that there was no trace of the annoying Malfoy here. They were even discovered by Mrs. Norris and chased by Filch all the way. After finally getting rid of him, they were entangled by Peeves again. In a panic, Harry found this room. They hid in it. The good news is that this room is safe. They soon realized that Filch would never come into this room, or more accurately, this small corridor on the east side of the 4th floor. Damn Peeves, Hermione heard Filch curse. He seemed to be walking further and further away. But there was also bad news. There was a dog in the room. A big dog with 3 heads. They retreated step by step to the door. Just when they decided to rush out, even if they were blocked by Filch, they suddenly heard footsteps. It was getting closer and closer. Hermione looked at Harry, Harry looked at Ron, and Ron looked at Neville. Neville had collapsed on the door. If it weren't for the support of the door, he might have slipped to the ground. The dog was looking at the 4 of them. It seemed to be scared too. They found a worse situation, a situation worse than the footsteps getting louder. The footsteps suddenly stopped. Go, Harry nodded. Between the dog and Filch, they would choose the dog. But if this dog had 3 heads and was as high as the ceiling, they firmly chose Filch. So when William was studying this door, it was knocked open from the inside with a bang. Almost subconsciously, he shouted the shield charm. Protego, a silver barrier appeared out of thin air. The 3 giants in the original book crashed into it fiercely. "Why are you here?" William snapped his fingers and cancelled the shield charm. Harry and Hermione froze in place, showing embarrassed expressions, just like when William had just made a mistake in his previous life and was caught by his mother. Ron was stunned for a moment. He didn't react. Inertia made him fall face first. "Hiss, I think my nose is going to break, men," Ron groaned in pain. "William, have you seen Filch?" Hermione asked worriedly, clutching the edge of her robe. "He left, as if he was very angry with Peeves," William answered. He felt inexplicably funny. After learning about their little duel and the subsequent turmoil, he had realized that even though he had appeared in Hogwarts, Malfoy still managed to trick Harry. "But how did you?" he suddenly thought, shook his head again, and did not ask further. "I think you should go back to the common room. It's too late now, and you should rest. Good night, William." Harry and the others said goodbye to him and left the small corridor without saying a word. It was obvious that this adventure had left them with a great psychological shadow. After they left, William did not go in. "Professor Dumbledore," he suddenly said loudly, as if talking to himself in the air. A moment later, the figure of the White Wizard quietly appeared at the corner of the corridor. He was wearing snow-white pajamas and a purple robe with gold on the outside. The expression on Professor Dumbledore's face seemed a little helpless, but with a smile. "William, how do you know I will answer?" Dumbledore said with a smile. "Thanks to Aspirin for the reward. Thanks to a certain lamp in the group for the reward. I am too busy today, and there are some troublesome things. The update is finished. Sorry." In the original book, Harry and Malfoy duel on the night of the flying lesson. In the movie version of the flying lesson, it is on the Friday of the second week, so this version is used. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 65 Nicholas Flamel. "William, how do you know I will answer?" Dumbledore said with a smile. He said "will answer, not here." William had already discovered when he observed the door lock of this corridor that it was sealed with a very sophisticated spell, which was not something that Hermione's Alato Open could easily open. "I just shouted casually, thinking that if you didn't answer, I would go in and take a look. You are a headmaster, how can you be so bored as to play fishing law enforcement with me here?" William answered frankly. "Ho ha ho ha," Dumbledore laughed. "Cunning and Ravenclaw, this is not a common combination, but since you asked, why don't you just go in and take a look?" The White Wizard raised his eyebrows and said, without any intention of stopping William. William naturally wouldn't be polite with him. He held the wand, pushed the door open very carefully, and walked into the small corridor. About a minute later, William came out again with a dusty face. "This old bee is playing tricks," William cursed in his heart. In his original impression, Fluffy, as the first level, was very simple. Although the 3-headed dog looks very scary, it will fall asleep quickly if you sing a song or play some music to it. It is actually the same. There is just one difference. The whole corridor has been cursed by an old bastard who has no conscience, bad taste, crazy, does not follow the rules of the game, and lacks social responsibility. Any sound, including the sound of chanting spells, will quickly become smaller after 1 or 2 seconds, like a mosquito's hum. Whether William uses the amplification spell, the music box, or wants to use magic to play a piece of music, it is no exception. "I thought you would last longer," Dumbledore said with a smile. It seems that being able to see William's embarrassed look is a very interesting thing for him. "Professor, this is not fun at all," William replied, while adjusting his robes. Fluffy was very enthusiastic when he heard the beginning of a piece of music, but did not wait for the follow-up. "William, I don't know if anyone has mentioned to you that when you want to curse, your eyes always show your intention very clearly." The White Wizard adjusted his glasses. "I'm sorry, Professor. Unfortunately, I've never met that old bastard Hermes in person," William replied unhappily. "To be honest, I think the things Nico left for you are too dangerous. He originally wanted to wait until he left, so that he could leave with him and go on. But you convinced him and made him decide to keep it. But you can only truly own it after you pass the test." Dumbledore waved his wand, smoothed the corners of William's robe, and said with a smile, "Any time in the next few years, as long as you are fully prepared, you can come here to challenge as many times as you want." I invited the professors to design these levels together, and after discussing with Nico, I decided to give them. He showed a sly smile, at a little surprise element. William knew that he had not scolded the wrong person just now. "But what did Hermes leave behind?" he asked Dumbledore. "I don't know," he was unwilling to tell me, and he couldn't even reveal any relevant information. This really broke the heart of an old friend. The White Wizard shook his head. His blue eyes met William's brown eyes. His expression was sincere and genuine. William would never believe, or at least would never accept, that anyone with such a sincere attitude would lie. "I only know that it is dangerous, very dangerous, but it also contains valuable knowledge." Nicole believes that it is because of that thing that he is so successful in the field of alchemy. Dumbledore sighed. "What about him, I mean Nicole Flamel?" William asked. Dumbledore adjusted his glasses, looked at William with some surprise and said, "He and his wife, the beautiful Perenelle, live in seclusion in Devon. He likes the climate and food there very much, and he often goes to the theater. Recently, he has also developed the habit of attending classes at the local university. When I visited him, he took me to see an opera by the common people, called Samson and Delilah. I must say that they performed very well, and Nicole even taught me how to buy tickets from them." He shrugged. "To be honest, I thought he would use disillusion to slip in like he did before and cast a confusion charm on them. He even laughed at me. Because I couldn't find our seats, that old bastard." William felt like laughing for some reason. He laughed out loud. "It's getting late, William, you should go back and rest. I mean, if you are not going to challenge again." Dumbledore also laughed. "You have a full 4 years. Please wait, Professor, I have another question." William hesitated for a moment before asking, "Nico, no, Hermes, will he choose to end it like this? He just told me that he has discovered many new and incredible things." "Oh," Dumbledore sighed. "You can ask this question in person when you meet him. Although he has decided to stop using the stone, he and Perenelle still have a lot of things to deal with, so he still left some elixirs for backup." "Good night, Professor," William said softly. "Good night, William." Professor Dumbledore smiled and waved to him. "I wish you a happy opening ceremony this weekend. I have told the house elves to cooperate with you as much as possible." "Thank you." William nodded and walked towards the Ravenclaw Tower. At first, Dumbledore had some opinions about him sending the house elves out, but when William gave him a set of product samples and told him the price he was going to pay, Ravenclaw became available at any time. He soon arrived at the door of the common room. William also saw an acquaintance, his roommate Jimmy, who seemed to be troubled by Griffick's question. Seeing William's figure, Griffick, who was responsible for opening the door, turned away silently without saying a word. "Thank you, its new question is too difficult. I have been standing here for almost an hour and I haven't figured out the answer," Jimmy said gratefully. The door of the common room opened. Gib fell asleep on the head of the Ravenclaw statue again. Even in his dreams, the little guy never forgot to hold a half-eaten chocolate frog. The Ravenclaw statue held the other half in its left hand, looking helplessly in the direction of the door. William picked it up. The statue smiled at him gratefully. After washing up, William lay down on the bed. When he was not in the dormitory, the house elf Lalo had put the drawings drawn by Mr. Anderson, who suspected that he was possessed by the devil, on the bedside table. The day after tomorrow is the first Hogsmeade open day this semester. The day after tomorrow is also the opening time set by William. Wish me good luck. With his eyes closed, listening to the reassuring sound of the wind outside the window, William slowly fell asleep. Thanks to the book friend 20210810161913800 for the reward. Thanks to Aspirin for the reward. Nicholas Flamel lives in seclusion in Devonshire and likes to watch dramas, all of which are rolling settings. I don't know if you have noticed that chapter 33 is Hermes and chapter 66 is also him. Well, after revising the manuscript, it will not be chapter 66. It took me a long time to revise the manuscript before I finally put it together. Samson and Delilah is a work by the French playwright Saint-Saëns, and Nicholas Flamel brought Dumbledore to show off. Chapter 66 The Secret of the Nymph. William was dreaming again. He was still in that black world, surrounded by warm liquid, But this time, he didn't know if it was his illusion, but William felt that he seemed to be able to move slightly, like a finger, or blinking his eyelids. What ship-changing wood? Why can't it be apparated, or just turn it into iron? Jimmy muttered in his sleep. William felt a little funny. He got up and put himself in a state of going out, changed into a robe, and walked out of the dormitory. The house elf Lalo was already waiting for him there. Today, Lalo was wearing a well-tailored tuxedo. Although he was still used to hunching his back, he looked very different. Mr. Buffalo, Mr. Weasley and Mr. Weasley wanted me to tell you to go to the Shrieking Shack as soon as possible. They are waiting for you there, Lalo said respectfully, and handed William an oil paper bag, which contained the breakfast he prepared. William asked the Weasley brothers to use permanent transfiguration to help decorate the store. Although he had purchased most of the counters, tables, display cabinets, etc., the walls, floors, ceilings and other places still needed to be handled by someone. Fortunately, although these places were cumbersome, it was not difficult to solve them with permanent transfiguration. However, it took them a lot of magic and energy to make the transfiguration effect permanent. Okay, thank you, William took it. This dress suits you very well, Lalo, he praised casually. This, Lalo scratched his head. It is a very happy thing to be praised by wizards, but it is very embarrassing if a wizard praises him for something he is unwilling to do. Perhaps Merlin knows how much effort William had to take off the tattered cloth strips on these house elves in order to deceive them and put on his customized tuxedos. In the eyes of house elves, being given clothes is a symbol of being fired. But William's words seemed very convincing. This is work clothes. Work clothes. Don't you want to work? I can't let you show up in the store like this, it's too undignified. It's the same for you and the customers. It may be difficult to change their ideas directly, but if they adapt little by little, they will change slowly but steadily. Just like cutting a salami. Cut a few slices at a time. There will always be a day when you finish eating. Finally, under the leadership of Lalo, who was the first to change clothes, they began to reluctantly put on the uniforms prepared by William and began to learn to be like humans and straighten their backs. Speaking of which, why can't you just take me there? William was a little dissatisfied with this. Mr. Buffalo, the great Hufflepuff lady clearly forbids us to do this. Lalo shook his head in embarrassment. Okay, he didn't insist much. Lalo bowed respectfully and then disappeared lightly. Tomorrow is the opening time set by William, and he still has a lot of things to prepare. William walked out of the castle. After he transformed the stone into a crow and had it poke the tumor on the waist of the Whomping Willow, it revealed a hidden passage. William bent down and went in, walked all the way to the innermost part, and knocked on the door. Is he here, friend William? The voices of the Weasley brothers rang out. Soon, there were hurried footsteps, and with a creak, the door of the passage was opened, and a red-haired head appeared in front of him. Then another red-haired head. For Merlin's sake. Did you go to duel with Snape? William exclaimed, and hurriedly handed over the oil paper bag containing breakfast, and a Weasley took it. The two of them looked very bad. There was a circle of visible dark circles under the heavy eye bags, and a lot of bloodshot eyes could be seen in the eyes. The wizard robes also looked messy. Those were Madame Welkin's robes that could be cleaned automatically, but they were made like this. That's so sad, friend William, we've been here all night, working non-stop, like poor house elves, they said in unison. Fred, or at least William guessed he was Fred, reached out to take it, opened it and took out a sandwich, and he and George shared half. We even found that annoying Percy for him, and Lee Jordan, and Angelina, they acted resentful. But George secretly winked at William. Okay, I'll help you with your props more in the future, now let me see the store. William interrupted the performance of the two funny guys. They smiled with satisfaction, and then wiped off the dark circles and bags under their eyes, but the bloodshot in their eyes was indeed real. They really stayed up all night. Okay. Please allow us to show you the secret of the nymph. Fred and George took William into the store. The first experience store. William named it the secret of the nymph. Everything was just as William expected. The originally shabby Screaming Shack has become clean and tidy after the transformation of Transfiguration and the efforts of the house elves. The shop is surrounded by floor-to-ceiling matte dark glass windows, which are now covered by black cloth outside, but the effect must be very good. When you walk into the store, you will see a reception desk directly. The brand logo of Nymph is hung on the wall. William cast a light spell on it, and it will always emit a gentle light. It looks like a daffodil. Extending to the left and right of the customer are 2 rows of beautiful display cabinets. They are completely different from the old wooden counters commonly seen in the wizarding world. They are made of transparent glass, and the products inside can be viewed from all angles. There are also many Impressionist-style oil paintings hanging on the walls. William asked his architect to buy a lot of them in Camden Market, and they didn't spend much money. When it opened, there will be house elves behind the display cabinets to take care of customers. In addition to the merchandise area, because the Screaming Shack also has a second floor, William specially set up the rest area. There are coffee, tea, simple cold cuts and snacks here, and customers who shop in the store are naturally free. Anyway, house elves are also free. There is no need for so many house elves working in the castle at the same time. William designed the entire store in a cyan tone between blue and green. Tiffany will not really come to Hogsmeade to cause trouble for him. Besides, even if you want to send a lawyer's letter, the address here is also hidden by the spell. Whenever someone wants to get to the bottom of it, they will suddenly think of something else. I have to send a lawyer's letter to this store. Oh, yes, I still have something to do. Okay, I can send a lawyer's letter to that store. God, how could I forget that thing? William once imagined this scene. He even wanted to secretly draw Mickey Mouse head. In addition to the store door, William also provided a special entrance for those wizards who were going to come via Floo powder, ensuring that as soon as they appeared, there would be house elves to receive them in time. Honestly, William, I don't understand you. Will you really succeed by doing this? Fred patted William's shoulder, holding a glass of pumpkin juice, and asked worriedly. Yes. I'm not saying that the potions you made are bad. George was halfway through his words, and Fred interrupted. Anyway, we didn't understand it either. Those frosts and powders are so complicated that it's like taking the potion class of that bad guy Snape. Unfamiliar brands, complex products, and effects that no one has tried. Are these what you are worried about? William said with a smile. Weasley nodded. In order to improve the reading experience, the update time will be adjusted in the future, from 7 o'clock and 11 o'clock every day to 2 chapters every afternoon. The previous Duel Club plot was a mistake I made in my attempt, and now it is back on track. Sorry. Chapter 67, is it Zyke? Not Geelong? Strange brands, complex products, and effects that no one has tried. Are these what you are worried about? But in my opinion, they are called exotic, rich choices, and novel experiences. William explained this to Penelope. After experiencing the baptism of internet celebrity products in his previous life, William still had a lot of bad water in his stomach, waiting to use it up, waiting to go to these wizards living in the 18th century. Olivia is a witch living in Dorset. She is a hard-working Hufflepuff. After graduating from Hogwarts 10 years ago, she entered the Ministry of Magic, of course, not a job like an Auror that requires 3 years of training and selection, and may lose her life at any time. She is just an ordinary clerk. This is a decent job. After working for 2 years, she married a wizard named Hugh Schuler, who is her senior at Hogwarts and a brave Gryffindor. They live in the countryside of Dorset. Although money is always not very abundant, as wizards, they don't have too many needs. As long as she saved up, she could buy a new book by Gilderoy Lockhart. She could also listen to wizard radio and watch Quidditch matches to relieve her boredom. Olivia thought her life would continue like this, giving birth to a few children, sending them to Hogwarts, watching them graduate, work, and get married. Until Nymph. Becoming beautiful? Beauty potion. Olivia quickly scanned the weekly magazine Sweetheart Beauty that she subscribed to. She had always liked the love stories on it, but suddenly there was such a seemingly real experience sharing that attracted her attention. That's great, but it must be very expensive. Olivia thought so. She had seen potions that could whiten and anti-aging effects in Mrs. Primpinell's beauty potion shop in Diagon Alley. Although the effect was very good at the time, it had to be brewed by a special potion master, the output was limited, and it was very expensive. Olivia turned to the end of the article. There was a small paragraph here. Your lottery number is 0195174. Please complete the questionnaire at the end of the magazine and send it back to the editorial office via AL mail. You will have a chance to participate in the lottery and receive a lucky gift package. She turned to the end and found that there was indeed a questionnaire here, but the questions were all trivial, such as what kind of flowers you like and whether you usually use beauty potions. Those things cost 1 or 2 gold galleons per bottle. I heard that they can't be preserved for a long time. Only pure-blood families can afford them, Olivia thought, but she somehow finished the questionnaire and asked the owl at home to send the letter out. A few days later, she received a reply. Dear Mrs. Schewel, congratulations on becoming a lucky reader of Sweetheart Beauty magazine. Nymph invites you to attend the opening ceremony of the first experience store in the UK, and you will receive a beautiful gift. Below is the location and time of the opening. Hogsmeade? I haven't been there for a long time, Olivia thought with some nostalgia. The last time she went to Hogsmeade was when she was a student at Hogwarts. If she needed to shop, she would always choose Diagon Alley. There were more shops there, and the variety of goods was also very complete. It's not bad to go back and have a look occasionally, Olivia carefully noted the time. But what she didn't know was that the serial number on each copy of Sweetheart Beauty was actually 0195174 inches, and as long as a witch completed the questionnaire, she would definitely receive an invitation. William prepared a total of hundreds of such letters. Thanks to the printing shops in the ordinary world, thanks to the outrageous transportation methods in the wizarding world, and even more thanks to the kind bosses of the cosmetics OEM factories. In order to take the order, they took the initiative to quote a very exaggerated price, so low that William even suspected that this might actually be their cost price. And perhaps it was negligence. Sweetheart Beauty and another magazine, Love Potion. The opening time of these two magazines was 1 hour earlier than the opening time William wrote in other magazines, but half an hour later than the official opening time set by William. So for Merlin's sake, William, have you called all the witches in England? Penelope, who was waiting for the opening of the restaurant with William in the lounge area on the second floor, said in surprise. She watched the queue at the door getting longer and longer. The house elf Lalo ran back and forth to explain and apologize, and gave each wizard in line a sample of perfume. If the witch was accompanied by a wizard, there would be an extra gift, which was a moisturizer with only a very small amount of love potion added, about 1/1000th of it. Lalo handed the witches exquisite paper bags. After they opened them, they looked at the beautiful glass bottles inside, which contained a light pink liquid that was like starlight and shimmering. As long as a 0.5% concentration of the improved love potion is added to the perfume, the ordinary perfume can be raised to the level of a magic potion. This is just the beginning, William nodded with satisfaction. He was actually a little worried about the time consciousness of these wizards, so he specially added a sentence in the letter, gifts are limited, first come first served. As for the inconsistent time, he naturally put the blame on the magazine. Anyway, no one would remember to blame them afterwards. Let them in 50 at a time. The same goes for the fireplace, but wait until the witches waiting in line outside come in before letting them in, he said to the house elf beside him. The house elf's name was Oak Cork. William didn't know how his mother came up with this name. Okay, Mr. Buffalo, Oak Cork nodded. He disappeared. Soon, the first batch of wizards excitedly walked into the first experience store of Nymph. They saw a sign on the reception desk in front of them with bold cursive words saying elegance is a choice for witches. The signature was Gilderoy Lockhart. William didn't even pay for the endorsement. When the idiot heard that he was invited to write and that many witches would see it, he simply agreed. William dared to bet that if he added a little more money, Lockhart might be willing to soak himself in formalin and be made into a wax figure to be placed in the store. Olivia and her husband were lucky to be among the first 50 people. She heard witches complaining in the back, but the house elf promised her that he would give her a coupon. Today's shopping is 95% off, and the consumption in the rest area is free after that, only for those of you who come early. Anyway, I'm just here to get a gift, Olivia thought. She couldn't afford any beauty potions. Hello, Mom. My name is Oak Cork, and I'm happy to serve you, the house elf in a tuxedo said respectfully. It was the first time she saw a house elf dressed like this. Olivia took out a letter. I received this letter saying that I can come here to receive a gift. Of course, please come here. Oak Cork nodded happily. He led Olivia to the counter on the site and opened a thick product book on it. Please choose any product you like. In addition, as our special guest, you can enjoy a 50% discount on the highest priced product you buy today. Olivia saw the product book. She looked at it carefully. The price you are talking about is IK? Not gallon. Thank you for the reward from 3-methylindole. Thank you for the reward from aspirin. Thank you for the reward from Zizhong Wufei. Thank you for the monthly ticket from 3-methylindole. Thank you for the monthly ticket from aspirin. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Kinshanksen Wunayanshen. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Shu Iao 201908190548088752. Thank you for the monthly ticket from Shenshi Iao Zai. Chapter 68 The differences between the three series. Of course, you can see that the specific price is written under each product, the house elf Okork said respectfully. Olivia was excited, because she found that she could not only afford the products here, but also buy many bottles and jars here with the price of buying a book by Gilderoy Lockhart. As long as you save it, it can be used for a long time, Olivia thought. But what about the effect? And what about lotion like this? How to use it? She carefully flipped through the product manual. At the beginning, it was a historical introduction of the brand, talking about some nonsense about it rising in the United States and having a history of several decades. Next were the signatures and praises of many witches whose names she didn't know, one of whom was a witch named Mary Dupin, who is the author of the article she saw in the magazine. Flipping through it, there were a variety of product types, skincare, makeup, etc. She had never heard of most of the names. Olivia only remembered that when she was studying at Hogwarts, one of her roommates was a muggle-born named Lisa. Lisa used to bring some muggle cosmetics to school every time, but they always joked that she liked to put useless things on her face, not like a witch at all. Later, Lisa stopped bringing them. Maybe this nymph borrowed the ideas of muggles and made them into useful potions, Olivia thought. Madam, the house elf interrupted her thoughts. He put 3 perfumes on the display cabinet. You can try them, Okork said respectfully and decently. Lalo really spent a lot of effort to let them learn how to receive guests. Olivia found that they were gold, silver, and pink, and the liquid inside exuded a faint luster and was still flowing slowly, like a small vortex. They were undoubtedly potions. Completely different from what Lisa brought to school at the beginning. These are the 3 series of perfumes that Nymph focuses on, the Gold of Time, the Noble Silver, and the Elegant Powder, Okork introduced. He opened the bottle cap and warmly invited Olivia to try it. Olivia took the bottle of golden perfume doubtfully, put it under her nose, and fanned it gently with her palm, so as to carefully taste the aroma it exuded. Merlin, she exclaimed in surprise. The perfume exuded a fragrance that was difficult to describe, but extremely attractive. It was a little like the fragrance of flowers and a little like grass, but the smell was very light, mixed with other aromas, so she couldn't tell what it was for a while. When Olivia was about to associate it with the smell she smelled when she lay on the grass beside the Black Lake in the afternoon after taking the newts, this wonderful feeling had disappeared again. Just a little bit, Olivia thought with some regret. But to be honest, this is the only experience that a 0.7% concentration of love potion can bring her. Love potion has always been one of the most expensive potions, because only very skilled potion masters can handle the raw materials with hallucinogenic factors and achieve a balance between them and the mucus and skin of the fire ash snake eggs. This formula is the secret of every potion master. The kind of secret worth taking into the coffin. Selling diluted love potions has always been one of the main businesses in the Nocturne Alley black market, but because it is often difficult for customers to trace the source of the diluted love potions. The love potions purchased in Nocturne Alley often have relatively bad side effects, for example, falling into crazy love. The kind in the literal sense. Olivia reluctantly put down the perfume bottle in her hand and picked up the second one, and then the third one. Each one had a different scent, but they all gave her that wonderful experience. Okork gave her other products to try. Olivia found that the appearance of almost every product in Nymph's store was particularly attractive, especially those liquid potions. But this is actually not difficult to achieve. Just add a little William's special dye to the love potion. It has no taste, no color, but it will continue to absorb liquid and flow according to William's intention. This dye is very easy to make. The main material comes from flowerworms, so the cost is pitifully low, and a large pot can be produced at a time. I'm sorry, Lockhart, Olivia thought. She looked at her husband. Mr. Schule nodded, indicating that he had no objection. He had just tried a cologne, and to be honest, he was a little itchy in his heart. But there are so many, which ones should I buy? Olivia suddenly felt a little embarrassed. There were too many products here. She must buy perfume, and there was also a potion for concealer that she was very interested in, a scrub for daily care, etc. If you are interested, we have also launched a corresponding package here. As our special guest, if you buy a package, I can also give you some special samples. The house elf oak cork seemed to see through her mind. But this is a special offer for you. You have to promise me not to tell it to others. William thought that when the guests suddenly became silent, they must say this. Soon, Olivia and her husband, Mr. Shule, each carried a bag and went to the lounge area on the second floor. Sitting by the window, they saw that the line outside was getting longer and longer. To be honest, this store is not what I thought, she said to her husband with some emotion. The house elves brought them a fruit plate and some cookies, which were actually baked in the castle. Olivia stroked a card in her hand. It was made of some kind of metal, very thin, and gleaming with gold. On the front was written Nymph, elegance is a choice for witches, and at the bottom was a row of numbers, which was Olivia's number. Although she was still a little confused about the specific use of this membership card, Olivia did not dislike the feeling that Nymph brought her. Of course, not far from them, William nodded and said, I don't want to make my store like Madame Primpinel in Diagon Alley, where everything is hidden so well that once you enter it looks like a gypsy witch's caravan. When he was in Diagon Alley, he had seen Madame Primpinel through the window. To be honest, it was like the small shop he saw in his previous life, with old decorations that were hundreds of years old, indifferent clerks, and potions of all kinds in one jar. For Merlin's sake. They even brewed potions on the spot in the store. The smell was impressive. But with so many varieties, A. Weasley was still a little confused. It doesn't matter. The wizards who buy them home will learn by themselves. They will even write various detailed guides to tell others how to buy them cost-effectively in the future. William waved his hand and said that he himself was actually a little confused about the differences between so many types of beauty products. We have perfume as the main product, and then we can sell packages. In the bag of each package, there is a very detailed instruction manual to guide wizards who have never come into contact with products from the ordinary world. What is the difference between these three series? Jimmy also came over. He just bought 3 packages downstairs and wanted to give them to Dorothy, the Hufflepuff, who knew that he saw William and his friends sitting together when he came up. It was not until now that he realized that this store was actually something that William and his friends had tinkered with. Gold pigment, silver pigment. William looked at him with some sympathy and said, Chapter 69 Gilderoy Lockhart. What about this last one? Jimmy held on to his last glimmer of hope. No coloring. Penelope smashed it mercilessly. It was almost noon. Many wizards had already entered the store. Some lived in Hogsmeade and nearby, some came from all over the UK after reading magazines, and some were called by wizards who had finished shopping earlier. Every wizard who had shopped and registered as a member would be handed a small card by the house elf before leaving. He could give this card to a friend, and if the friend came to shop, he could enjoy a certain discount with the card, and the wizard himself could get points. Points can be exchanged for benefits in the store. There were always wizards coming in and out, but the number of people queuing at the door of Nymph's secret store seemed to have never decreased, and therefore attracted many bored and curious wizards to join the ranks. They also wanted to know what was being sold in the store. Many people came from afar through Apparition and Flu Network after learning about this situation, because their friends or relatives came and notified them through various methods. They were free anyway, so they might as well come and take a look. After all, it was only a spell or a handful of flu powder away. William even saw the figures of Professor McGonagall and Professor Sprout, who walked into the store with another middle-aged witch who was very beautiful. But the residents of the town had complicated feelings. There was a stupid American who bought a haunted shrieking shack and wanted to open a potion store here. He also kept it secret and covered the entire house with black cloth. This story was very popular some time ago and has always been a landmark building in Hogsmeade and a classic joke in the Three Broomsticks. Everyone likes jokes, but they don't like jokes to come true. But if they find out later that these are actually ordinary people's cosmetics, won't they feel cheated? Penelope asked her question. In fact, a witch who was born as an ordinary person had asked a similar question this morning, but William had actually anticipated this situation, and asked Griffock to explain that these products were potions made with reference to ordinary people's cosmetics. All our products are potions, aren't they? William was not worried. All the love potions that he and Penelope made all night were used in the first batch of products, leaving nothing behind. Not only that, he also specially made ingredients that were used to change the fragrance, beautify the appearance, or even have no effect, just to confuse those dog noses. They will try to crack my specific formula, but that is almost impossible. But maybe after a while, they will crack out the core ingredients and find ordinary people to make something similar. William said calmly. In doing so, he not only dug up the roots of Mrs. Pimpernel, but also showed a new thing to the entire British wizarding world. Someone will definitely come out to pay tribute soon. But William believed that only when the time came, the wizards would find that they could not play with the things he had come up with at all, just like the math test of the year. Even if the correct answer was placed in front of them, they still couldn't figure out how it was calculated. The popularity of The Secret of the Nymph reached its peak in the afternoon, because a person came to the scene. Gilderoy Lockhart. He was wearing a very flashy forget-me-not blue robe that William didn't even know which shameless robe shop he found it from, and he came out of the fireplace. The sharp-eyed witch saw her and screamed, and the sound almost made William think that a murder case had occurred on the first floor. Mr. Lockhart. Can you sign an autograph for me? Just use this lipstick I just bought. Anywhere. A lucky witch stood in front of him. Gilderoy raised his eyebrows slightly, picked up a nymph brochure, and quickly wrote on it, "Elegance is a choice for witches." "To my dear?" he asked. Kathy Kate. The witch was so excited that she almost choked. Lockhart spent the whole afternoon in the store, signing brochures for his fans, and stood up from time to time to take photos with them, until the last bit of stock in the store was sold out. He went to the lounge area on the second floor and boasted about his adventures tirelessly. "I didn't drive away the one-man ghost," with a smile, "beautiful lady, although becoming elegant has indeed helped my life a lot." Even William himself didn't expect his appearance. When he invited him to write the slogan of Nymph, he did send an invitation letter for the opening, and also gave Lockhart a whole set of products, and invited him to become the brand ambassador of Nymph. But the problem is that there was no mention of treatment in the invitation. It's a bit like saying to someone, "Come to your house for dinner some other day," and then one day that person suddenly came to your door and said, "I'm coming to your house for dinner," and also did a thorough cleaning of your house from top to bottom, and was exhausted and panting. But if we follow Lockhart's performance in the original book, William couldn't tell whether he was being attentive for some purpose or was really stupid. Lockhart was the spokesperson for a shampoo brand. When William was doing research before, he found that although wizards had almost no knowledge of beauty and skincare, if you don't count the crappy store in Diagon Alley, they had a good level in daily chemical products. The shampoo that the Potter family invented back then is still a well-known brand in the market. Not only in this aspect, almost the entire wizarding world is like this. They will occasionally pull their heads out of the sand like ostriches and steal some new things from the world of ordinary people, such as radio, shampoo, cars, etc., but they never go into it. Mr. Buffalo, what should we do? Asked the house elf Lalo. For the opening of the business, they spent a lot of time training the words and practicing the process over and over again, but in the plan that William wrote for them, this situation never occurred. "We do nothing." William thought about it and decided, after the event is over, you will send him a set of products and prepare a separate bag for him. Don't prepare a bag, just put 40 gold galleons in the bag of the products. 40 gold galleons. In fact, it is not much for Lockhart. His hardcover new book may cost several gold galleons per copy, but in fact, it is not a small amount. The position of the store manager of Flourish and Blott's bookstore in Diagon Alley has always been considered a very dangerous job, because not only do you need to deal with many difficult magic books, but sometimes you may be bitten off your fingers or cursed by some strange manuscripts, notes, private editions, etc. It is difficult for someone to continue working in this position, but even so, he still only has a weekly salary of 40 gold galleons. William also told Lalo some words. He was not going to personally appear in the operation of Nymph. At least for the time being. "Yes, Mr. Buffalo." Lalo disappeared in front of William, and appeared at the staircase on the second floor after a while. He walked towards Lockhart with a heavy package in both hands. "Thanks to Cacus for the monthly ticket. Thanks to the Magic King for the monthly ticket. Thanks to the Tears of Horus for the monthly ticket. Thanks to the Exiled Immortal Litebe for the monthly ticket." Chapter 70 How to Spend Gold Galleons? Lalo, the house elf, walked towards Lockhart with a heavy bag and apologized to him. "The owner is not in the store at the moment, but thank you for your support." Lockhart took it and showed a regretful expression on his face. But Gilderoy Lockhart didn't know that just a few steps away from him, the real owner of Secrets of the Nymph was actually closely observing his performance. How could it be? William thought confusedly. He imagined the possible reactions of Lockhart when he saw the contents of the bag: take it like a fool, take a look and leave, act offended and lose temper, or refuse politely. But William didn't expect that Lockhart would show a sincere expression of joy. He subconsciously looked into the bag first, and after noticing those golden, round little guys, he carefully weighed the weight again. It's not light. A perfect smile with perfect curves and just the right amount of beautiful teeth appeared on Lockhart's face. Lockhart leaned down and said something to Lalo, and even patted Lalo on the shoulder. This is not a normal action for wizards. He seemed to be really happy about this little money. After a moment, Lockhart, who finally confirmed that he could not wait for the owner of the shop, left the fireplace a little angrily. William had reason to believe that he chose flue powder because Lockhart could not use apparition, and flying on a broom would ruin his hairstyle that must have taken a lot of time to make. Mr. Buffalo, Mr. Lockhart asked to thank you for your invitation in person, and also euphemistically mentioned that he had a request, but did not say what it was, Lalo reported to William. He was really tired today. Thank you for your hard work, William nodded in response. He didn't know what Lockhart was doing, but the guy's joyful expression when he saw the gold galleons didn't seem fake at all. This didn't seem like the performance of the best-selling author of books in the wizarding world. Lalo, how should I repay you? Although you said that you house elves don't need to be paid, there should be a way for me to express my gratitude, right? William said patiently, patting Lalo's shoulder. Reward. The house elf's pupils dilated. He had never heard that there would be wizards who wanted to repay them in addition to affirming their work. No, house elves don't need any reward. It's our honor to work for wizards, Lalo said with his shrill voice trembling. Then what if I am providing you with job security, just like when you work in the castle will also provide you with food and a place to rest, right? William changed his perspective. He found that house elves are creatures who choose to be bound by rules. As long as he interprets the existing rules appropriately, they will be confused. This Mr. Buffalo, Lalo found that his head became a mess again. How about this? Let me buy each of you a bottle of butterbeer. I think you rarely drink this kind of drink in the castle. William took the initiative to lower his requirements a little. This seemed to be a very trivial matter. Just like cutting off a piece of salami. Thank you, Mr. Buffalo. You are a good wizard. No, Lalo the house elf should not say whether wizards are good or bad, but Mr. Buffalo, seeing that Lalo the house elf was about to close his mind again, William hurriedly handed him the bag of butterbeer that Fred and George had bought earlier, and said, "Can you help me distribute it to everyone?" Of course. Mr. Buffalo, Lalo bowed deeply. He disappeared in front of William. I always have a feeling, William, that you are different from all wizards. Including those of us who come from the world of ordinary people, Penelope said after the house elf left. There was a glass of butterbeer in front of her. At this moment, there was no one else on the second floor except the two of them. Fred and George went to Zonko to make a lot of purchases in order to thank them for their help. William gave them rewards without any hesitation. For the Weasley brothers who had always been short of money, the two of them finally had a small amount of funds that they could use at their own discretion. Jimmy took Dorothy to Madame Putty's coffee shop, where he wanted to give her the 3 bags. To be honest, William had already foreseen the outcome of his efforts. How can you give so many things at once? It's not my betrothal gift, he tried to persuade Jimmy tactfully. But even the greatest Buddhist gods, when teaching the world, there are some things that even he, who is supposed to be omnipotent, can't do. Why do you say that? William put down the account book in his hand and looked at Penelope. The numbers on it are very tempting. What's more outrageous is that it will become even more tempting. After that, William can completely divide the processing of potions into many parts and outsource them all. He only needs to be responsible for the final brewing process, which only takes 1 night, which is enough to supply the demand for several days. Even in the future, when the conditions are ripe, he can outsource the brewing process, such as to a potion master in the castle who can't learn to wash robes. I can't explain it clearly. But no one has ever tried to respect house elves, not even this idea, but you have always treated them equally. And Fred and George, you know that even if you don't give them a single gold galleon, they will be happy to help you, right? Penelope sat back a little, leaning back on the comfortable sofa, spreading her beautiful brown hair. She didn't ask those wild ideas. This surprised William. The pair of brown eyes looked at him, making it difficult for him to have any ideas to fool around, even if it seemed to be a very difficult thing to answer this question seriously. But Penelope didn't urge or embarrass him, just waiting quietly. After a moment, William sighed. I just think it should be done this way, so I did it. Although he knew that even if he didn't give anything and exploited those house elves, they would be happy to do it and perfectly execute every one of his instructions. He alone was powerless to change the status quo of the entire wizarding world, and even if it really changed, it would have some adverse effects on him, but William just felt a little awkward. He couldn't get over it. Penelope didn't respond to his answer, but just looked at William. When he almost suspected that there was a stain on his face, she suddenly smiled and said, "Have you thought about how to spend so many gold galleons? On this issue, I have the same view as the British Treasury when looking at the fiscal budget." William picked up the account and took another look at the number. Even if the 30% for the old bees and various other expenses were thrown out, as a single-day sales, it was still very convincing. You know, the Treasury never makes a budget based on how much money they want to spend, but tries to raise all the budget they can get, and then consider how to spend it. Looking at the confused Penelope, he explained. Although every little wizard from an ordinary family can exchange some gold galleons with currencies such as pounds every year, the currency of the wizarding world is essentially not intercirculated with a pound. Although gold galleons, silver sickles, and copper nuts are all made of metal, they all have magical properties. Only the goblins responsible for casting them know how to cast ordinary gold, silver, and copper into wizard currency galleons, sickles, and nuts. But at the moment, William does have a place where he needs to burn a lot of money to achieve a little success. Nicholas Flamel's manuscript book of hieroglyphs records many interesting things. Chapter 71 Coffee Mate. What is alchemy? In his previous life, William, who was Feng Rui, thought that this was just a fantasy popular in the Middle Ages, a trick of smelting various metals into alloys to make them look like gold. Not long ago, William thought that this was just a branch of magic. Enchantments, potions, and making props were all specific manifestations of alchemy. After trying to interpret Nicholas Flamel's manuscripts and coming into contact with the wizard's alchemical theory, William discovered that alchemy is actually a complex and magnificent field. Alchemy does not simply refer to the transformation of things like stones and metals into gold, but a whole set of theories about material changes and spiritual cultivation. As within, so without. As above, so below. In Nicholas Flamel's eyes, the universe and human beings are actually one. Nature, the world, magic, and the individual soul or mind are all connected in a unified and harmonious way. To interpret it in words that William is more familiar with, it is one is all, and all is one. In the original universe, there was only one existence, and then a brilliant soul, the Spirit of God, flowed out of his body, forming the universe, humans and other things. Therefore, everything in this world follows an extremely magnificent rule, and alchemy is the alchemist's understanding and interpretation of this rule, and decomposing and reconstructing it. His manuscript, the Book of Hieroglyphs, records Nicholas Flamel's initial encounter with the world of alchemy. He got an old book called the Jewish Book of Abraham. I have an ancient and huge book in my hand that I exchanged for 2 florins. It is not made of paper or sheepskin like other books, but of delicate and smooth young bark. The cover is tightly wrapped in brass, engraved with text or strange symbols. It has 3 groups of 7 pages, including the first page. The 7th page of each group has no text, but on the 7th page of the first group, there is a picture of a magic wand swallowed by a giant snake. 3 and 7. They are both considered to have magical numbers. William found that in Nico's manuscript, there were many records of deletions and revisions, showing his thoughts over a long period of time. In order to achieve a change, alchemists must pay attention to the properties of the 4 elements and combine the 3 major elements sulfur, mercury, and the alchemical rules of salt. There are also 3 kingdoms, plants, animals, and minerals. For Merlin's sake, William read the translated manuscript. There are too many uncommon words in it, and he had to match them one by one with a dictionary. The whole manuscript is full of symbols and words with mysterious meanings. For example, sulfur among the 3 major elements actually refers to the so-called soul of things, guiding the volatilization rules of fire and air. To be honest, if it weren't for knowing that Nicholas Flamel might be the most brilliant alchemist in 1,000 years, William would even be willing to do a set of advanced mathematics papers and not want to study this broken thing. This is much more difficult than Snape's potion class. In William's view, alchemy in the magic world is essentially a technology for developing new materials. Alchemists separate the elements in a substance, purify, refine, fuse and reorganize it, and finally form a brand new substance. In this art, the formula is the most important secret. William skipped a long paragraph in the middle that he had not yet understood and turned directly to the end of the manuscript. Nicholas Flamel recorded many of the formulas he had tried there, and after earning a lot of gold galleons from the secret of the nymph, William finally had the opportunity to practice some of the above formulas. These formulas not only contain a large amount of precious metals and gems, but also materials from rare magical creatures and plants. Unfortunately, William could not get most of the raw materials for these formulas together. Among the few raw materials that could be gathered together, many processes were very dangerous and not suitable for a novice like him to operate in Hogwarts or anywhere else. Among those formulas that he could operate, many products seemed useless and embarrassing. However, William still managed to find a few formulas that did not require rare raw materials, were relatively safe, and the finished products were still useful to William. During this time, he had made some preparations. He bought freshly picked poisonous nightshade, put it in a transparent container, and added a small amount of alcohol as mucus. Then, hot steam was used to enter the liquid, and the condenser was used to extract and capture the steam. A layer of oil gradually formed on the water. William collected the oil and stored it in a glass bottle. It will constitute a medium of the spiritual rules of sulfur, one of the 3 elements of alchemy. William has placed the poisonous ginseng eggplant in the container for a long time, waiting for its final fermentation. Just like in his previous life, he worked hard every day to complete his daily routine and save blue tickets. And today finally came to the most critical link. The poisonous ginseng eggplant in the container has turned into yellow-green watery paste. During the fermentation process, the plant has died in the sense of alchemy. Its vitality has entered the medium of water, and William will begin to distill them. After the 9th distillation, he finally got a volatile liquid with a pungent smell. This will be used as the mercury of alchemy. As for the remaining poisonous ginseng eggplant, he did not throw it away, but saved it, preparing to process it and use it as the last element of alchemy, salt. Dry. No problem. Then burn it to ash. Purify the impurities accumulated in it, and the structural components used to protect the plants in the growth environment. It also needs to be dissolved in water, filtered, and evaporated. After strictly following the steps left by Nico, William obtained the so-called purified white crystals. The next step is to mix them. William ground the white crystals into fine powder and added them to the previously prepared sulfur and mercury. He got a strange mixture. This is the prototype of alchemical medicine. Although if strictly following the manuscript, William still needs to make it at the corresponding time and under the astrological signs. Even Nico himself is a little confused whether this will really have any obvious effect. He began to heat the mixture containing the 3 elements, took out the magic wand, and stirred them slowly like boiling potion. 3 circles clockwise, 6 circles counterclockwise. The originally very turbid yellow-green liquid began to change little by little under the influence of William. It first turned dark green, bubbling, and looked like the witch Helena Duncan's potion, but when he changed direction and began to stir, a vortex began to appear in the middle of the container, which slowly turned from the center to the outside and turned light yellow. Finally, when William stopped stirring and heating, the mixture had turned into an amber transparent liquid with a faint fragrance. It looked almost exactly the same as the finished product recorded in Nicholas Flamel's manuscript, and had a very significant refreshing effect. Add a small amount to coffee and drink it. It can keep you clear all day. Nicholas Flamel introduced it like this. So William named it Coffee Companion. Thanks to Unknown Object Z, 100 Ways to Make Eggs, FGO No 5 stars, Arcturus, Ranking, Kaza, Aspirin, Ars Gotia's monthly tickets. Thanks to 3methylindole for the 5,000 character rewards, and Chachi Fei Yang and Aspirin for the rewards. I would also like to give special thanks to my neighboring author Hilbert Ange for providing me with the Alchemy book, which enabled me to make this chapter look more presentable. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 72, Reply to the Horror Journey. Before he knew it, William had been in Hogwarts for almost 2 months. You call this coffee, mate? Jimmy exclaimed as he looked at the test tube filled with amber liquid. According to Nicholas Flamel, a small amount of this alchemy medicine can keep people awake for a whole day if added to drink. This dose can last for about a month. If I hadn't met Professor Binns, William secretly complained. That's simply a causal weapon. Yet, he yawned and answered Jimmy. He spent too much time studying alchemy last night, so when he returned to the dormitory, it was already dawn, but he had classes in the morning and couldn't sleep until he woke up naturally. But it's still worth it. Although alchemy seems to be a mysterious science, it is essentially no different from the potion process I split before. These attempts have proved that as long as you can get the same effect, you don't actually need to follow Nicholas Flamel's steps. The only trouble is how to accelerate its decay and fermentation, William thought. A whole big pickle jar is certainly good. But it's too slow, but this was the only thing he couldn't accept. After spending a full month optimizing each process step, William was able to produce the alchemy medicine he named Coffee made in batches, and the tube he threw to Jimmy was a sample of the first batch of products. William had not yet decided how to sell this alchemy medicine, because the production cycle was relatively long, so the production cost had never reached a level that satisfied him. But anyway, making Coffee made is just for temporary practice. When Lalo helps to contact a suitable supplier, it will be the key. If that thing is made, it will be outrageous. In Nicholas Flamel's manuscript, William found a formula that Nicholas thought was marked as valuable but useless. He could mix the blood of some magical creatures with several types of metals to create a metal with magic. This metal has a very strong magic conductivity, which is almost comparable to the sensitivity of being used to make wands and flying brooms. But its melting point is extremely high, and it is very difficult to put it into a mold and heat it into shape. But William dared to bet that even the great Nicholas Flamel had never heard of a technique called powder metallurgy. Maybe this year you can consider using this to steal the business of Buffy's brain-stimulating agent. Every year before Owls, there will always be someone who secretly sells them to fifth-year students. But it seems to be made of some kind of feces. Penelope mentioned that she had finished her breakfast and was reading a copy of the Daily Prophet. Poof, Jimmy suddenly spit out the milk in his mouth. Sorry, Ivory. He hurriedly apologized to the boy sitting next to him. Is there any interesting news? William just glanced at the front page, which was about several ordinary people witnessing a car suddenly exploded. It has been a long time, but the group of dark wizards seemed to have suddenly dissolved into the water. Although the Aurors of the Ministry of Magic have been chasing and blocking them, they have never made any breakthroughs. We really need to find a way to tear off that garlic-scented headscarf. Model Professor Quirrell, Tisk. This combination is as strange as the combustible burrito. William has been trying to find a suitable opportunity for this period of time. And even borrowed the Weasley brothers' Marauders map so that he could always observe Quirrell's movements. But even Ron's mouse couldn't help running out of the common room for a night stroll. But Quirrell was like a good baby, without any action. He rarely wandered around, and almost always appeared in places like the auditorium where there were a lot of people. It seems that in the original book, he ran into the Forbidden Forest all day, or secretly went to the corridor on the 4th floor. How come you suddenly became a good baby? William, who was frustrated, thought, I don't believe that you really came to Hogwarts to fulfill your dream. Halloween is a good opportunity. If Quirrell follows the script. Interesting news? No, except for how many times has Mrs. Primnair been here? Penelope tilted her head slightly and thought for a moment. More than 30 times. Publicly complained to the Ministry of Magic about you, poor Mr. Weasley. William expressed deep sympathy for his experience. Mr. Weasley had come to the store with his staff, an old wizard named Perkins, some time ago, and was then pulled by the twins to chat with William about the things in the ordinary world for a long time. Shall we go? Everyone finished breakfast. They walked towards Professor Sprout's greenhouse. Compared to when they first came to Hogwarts, the wind has become stronger and the temperature has become lower, but William has become more and more familiar with Hogwarts. From a distance, they can see the pumpkin field next to Hagrid's hut. The pumpkins are scary big. Speaking of which, is Hagrid a hidden genius of magic? He was expelled from Hogwarts, but he can still cast spells with a broken wand, releasing permanent deformation and magnification spells. William suddenly thought. This is really illogical. I can find a chance to observe it, he thought, tightening the collar of his robe and quickening his pace to the greenhouse. William soon discovered that even after nearly a month, Sprout still hadn't forgotten his crazy words in the first class. Even when she was demonstrating to everyone how to deal with the bubble pods, she still stared at William out of the corner of her eye. As if I would steal the pods to eat, William complained quietly after class. The bubble pod is a very interesting magical plant. It can grow a kind of fat pink pods with shiny beans inside. Once it touches a solid object, it can bloom. Objectively speaking, you did mention that you wanted to try to stir-fry them. Penelope glanced at William. She has witnessed such remarks many times, from jumping bulbs, umbrella flowers, evil palms, to today's bubble pods. Penelope can't understand why William has such a strong obsession with stir-frying these things. But Professor Sprout doesn't know, and aren't the leaves of the umbrella flower delicious? William answered confidently. Okay, get out of class is over. Students, see you next time in the herbology class. Professor Sprout clapped her hands. She signaled that they could leave the greenhouse. Goodbye, Professor Sprout. William and the others packed up their things, wrapped their robes tightly, and walked towards the auditorium. When lunch was almost over, an owl suddenly flew in from the door and handed William a heavy envelope tied to its leg. William looked at the sender column. Stephen Holler, 59 Diagon Alley, Horror Tour Travel Agency, finally here. William thought to himself, he had already sent a letter to this very deceptive travel agency before, asking about Dr. John Dee and necromancy. Because he had not received any results, he sent another letter to ask if the incident in Nocturne Alley could be related to necromancy. But unlike the first time, William stuffed 5 galleons in the previous letter. Chapter 73, Terrible Conclusion. After lunch, William walked towards the library. Dear Mr. Buffalo, first of all, please allow me to express my sincere apologies for taking so long to reply to you. In order to understand your inquiry, we have to verify with our colleagues who are exploring Ireland. At the beginning of the letter, William did not believe a word. Although wizards are scattered in various places, their transportation and communication methods are frighteningly convenient. For Merlin's sake, Olivia, who lives in Dorset, can come to the store to shop in the morning, go to Diagon Alley to buy books in the afternoon, and come back to the store to have a wedding anniversary dinner in the evening. William couldn't help but want to complain. With a suggestion of Griffock and others, and with the opinion of Professor Dumbledore himself, they turned the second floor of Secrets of the Nymph into a restaurant and bar that only opens in the evening, serving food and drinks. Members of the store can use points to deduct consumption, and have the opportunity to enjoy special customized packages twice a year. In addition, William also bought several magic cameras for the store to use. Because of this, the boss of the 3 broomsticks, Ms. Romister, has been in a bad mood recently. Although many of the magic cocktails in her shop are unique in the UK, they are still inferior to the wine cellar of Secret of the Nymph. Even if we don't talk about the flaming whiskey, if we don't consider the fancy factor, the taste alone may not be better than Damore. In terms of the environment alone, Secret of the Nymph is obviously much better. I hope that the architect will be more efficient and build the underground factory as soon as possible. Then we can hire a few interns with Dumbledore to brew aphrodisiacs, and then sell them to the ordinary people's market. William thought that while he educated the wizarding world with dumping and made a lot of gold galleons, the balance of his account in the ordinary world was declining rapidly. But it will be a big loss in a while. He has already notified Scott and is ready to take advantage of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Forget it, don't worry about it. William continued to read the letter. Dr. John Dee is the greatest necromancer of the church. He can revive corpses by using the black magic he invented. But we have no way of knowing whether the soul in the body trembling under the white cloth is from the original owner of the corpse or the evil spirit summoned by him, the letter said. He also attached a record of Dr. John Dee's summoning of the dead from his assistant. The text recorded that they entered the destination at midnight and needed 2 people to recite the sacred protection spell at odd times. Regarding the Nocturne Alley incident you mentioned, judging from the photos of the explosion site, it was caused by black magic, not necromancy. But we do suspect that there may be traces of necromancy in it. Please refer to the photo marked 1. William found the photo he mentioned from the envelope. It was the one published in the Gossip magazine that day. On the ground on the right side of the photo, a twisted metal object was circled in a big red circle. It should be the so-called Gelodius's dead clock. Usually it appears in the form of a symbol, but in the most solemn and formal ceremony, the necromancers will use special metals to create a real dead clock. Not only that, the Daily Prophet mentioned that there were a total of 9 Muggle victims. 9 is a magical number in necromancy. We can't judge the specific purpose of the ceremony, but thank you for your letter. It's a terrifying journey, and I always look forward to serving you next time. The letter ended here. William took out the envelope, and there were some photos of necromancy for his reference. They were all some past ceremony scenes with many symbols in the sense of mysticism. Just looking at it makes people feel dizzy. Dr. John Dee's own manuscript 9 Victims as Sacrifices. The most solemn ceremony. The resurrection of the corpse. If that person is going to use this ceremony to resurrect, William quickly formed a conjecture. But he soon had a worse association. What if Voldemort has actually been resurrected in this way? In that case, he may still need the elixir of life, because this kind of resurrection is actually a false life. According to Tom Riddle's character in the original book, he would never accept it. Then it's time for the next question. Is there anyone else on the back of Quirrell's head? If there is someone who has resurrected in Knockturn Alley, it is said that Dumbledore and his team broke into the ceremony. Did they interrupt the ceremony? If there is no one, dear, do you want to find a seat to sit down and read it? The library is not a place for walking, Madame Pants interrupted William's thinking. Unknowingly, William had arrived at the door of the library, and seemed to be wandering around for a long time. Sorry, Madame Pants, William apologized embarrassedly. He walked into the library, took out Nicholas Flamel's manuscript and French dictionary, and continued to translate the next part. Nicholas Flamel mentioned a spiritual practice that is more effective for wizards, but William's mind was always thinking about Voldemort. We must find a chance to verify it, William thought. If Voldemort really resurrected in advance, or accumulated enough vitality, then his life in Hogwarts in the next few years would not only be dangerous, but also very likely to fail. That Tom Riddle will not let me happily build dungeons here, or attack Diagon Alley. And I'm from Ilvermorny. William came to a very bad conclusion. As a time traveler, he must do something to keep his leisurely life in Hogwarts, whether it is to verify the back of Quirrell's head, or to determine whether the old Voldemort has been resurrected. Although Dumbledore is an old bastard. Even though Dumbledore is an old bastard. But the contrast with his peers is really good. Alice, thinking of this, William sighed. Hermione, who was walking in from the door of the library, also sighed. She looked at William with some surprise. William also looked at her with some surprise. Compared to the last time they saw each other, the backpack behind her seemed heavier. It pressed on Hermione's back, making her standing posture look a little hunched. Hermione walked to the table opposite William and put down the bag, which made a muffled thump. She took out several books from it, buried her head in them like an ostrich, and silently recited the contents of the books. After a moment, she raised her head and looked at William. William, why do you think they keep violating school rules? The professor has said that this is forbidden, and they don't study hard. This will only bring trouble to the college. Hermione's voice was very low at first, but it became louder and louder. Thanks to Ferenz, check, Jinai aspirin, book friend 150,707,104,046,890, Zhenzianu, King Kong Nian, King Kong Shenjing, Louis Chen, book friend 202011130145935431, book friend 2021051404194172, how to name it, Sister Controlled 2, Hazy Lantern's monthly ticket. Thanks to Jinai Unhun, Zibo, and the mobile screen was broken on comfortable Zyanga for the rewards. Sorry for the late update today, because the follow-up reading has been falling recently, so I discussed with the editor and revised the manuscript after the discussion, and adjusted the writing habits, and added the protagonist's psychological activities. It is estimated that the recommended PK will kneel next week, but I still want to ask for follow-up reading. Click on the latest chapter for 30 seconds every day. Please extend my life. Chapter 74 Unicorn. Outside the library. Hermione looked at William nervously, her fingers tightly crossed, her heels rubbing against the ground unconsciously, wishing she could dig out a 3-bedroom, 1-living-room house. She made a loud noise in the library. William was driven out by Madame Pants to calm down. He couldn't help but speak his mind. But her demeanor became much more relaxed, as if Hermione had been under a lot of pressure during this period. To be honest, William could understand her. It was originally a wonderful thing to be born as an ordinary person and enter a magic school specially open for wizards, but what followed was anxiety and self-doubt. William recalled when he first entered Ilvermorny. Not long after, he found that if he didn't count the instinct to cast multiple spells, his talent was not outstanding, at least not the top. When others could enjoy the joy of learning magic with peace of mind, all he could do was to double his investment, to work harder than everyone else. But as a time traveler, William could think of various ways to protect and motivate himself, and eventually adapt quickly. and even used this anxiety. But Hermione didn't. She could only do what her instincts told her to do, memorizing everything, listening carefully in all classes, preparing and reviewing, winning more points for her college, and not letting others deduct them. I just happened to use the first half of the day to rest. William made a decision. I can answer your questions, but you have to do something for me first. This is an equal exchange. He looked at Hermione calmly and said. What is it? Hermione asked blankly. Suddenly hearing William's words, she subconsciously frowned and leaned against the wall behind her. Don't study this afternoon. Do whatever I do. William made his request, but he didn't give Hermione a chance to refuse, but threw her heavy school bag into his shoulder bag and walked to the other end of the corridor. Wait. My school bag, Hermione reacted belatedly. William and his friends walked from the library to the entrance hall, from the entrance hall to Hagrid's cabin, and then walked along the cabin to the dense forbidden forest. During this time, Hermione thought of many reasons and tried to ask William to return her school bag in various ways. She even stood in front of William with her eyes wide open, staring at him. But when they were about to enter the forbidden forest, she suddenly became quiet. Hermione bit her lip and followed William in. Students are forbidden to enter the forbidden forest. It's not safe here. It's set in a school history, she said in a low voice, but her eyes were observing everywhere. Students are forbidden to enter the forbidden forest if they are found, William answered casually. He bent down and picked some brightly colored mushrooms. Since he was here anyway, it would be good to take some things back to use alchemy to win prizes. A botricle quietly appeared from the tree trunk and wanted to hit William with its sharp arms, but he gently tapped its head with his wand. The botricle made an angry hissing sound. Botrucks are very interesting creatures. They are very smart, but they dare to defend their homes even when facing strong enemies. William introduced that in exchange for the mushrooms under the tree it guarded, he stuffed a candy into the botruck. Since Jimmy gave Gabe a few pounds of chocolate frogs last time, he saved a lot of candy. Stepping on the thick fallen leaves, they walked deeper. You seem to know the forbidden forest very well. Hermione's observation was very sharp. Well, how should I put it? For some extracurricular activities, I need to come here for a walk from time to time. But I come here more at night. William has his own definition of walking. Learning Nicholas Flamel's alchemy requires the use of materials of many magical creatures and magical plants of different properties, and sometimes they must be picked fresh. Be careful, he said, hearing a slight movement among the branches and leaves, and pointed his wand at the source of the sound. Impedimenta, obstacles. The red light shot out and chiseled a groove in the ground. A spider as big as a Labrador suddenly jumped out of the bushes, its sharp fangs pointed directly at William. It was an 8-eyed giant spider. William, be careful, Hermione shouted loudly. Then do something, William suddenly said loudly, waving his wand. Impedimenta. The red light pushed the 8-eyed giant spider back a few steps. It was stunned for a while, shook its head, and rushed over again. Crack. The thick-skinned 8-eyed giant spider felt something fall on its body, but it seemed that nothing happened. Hermione picked up a stone on the ground and threw it over. She bent down again to find the next one. Hermione, you are a witch. William almost couldn't help laughing. Yes, that's right, I am a witch. Hermione, who woke up, put down the stone in her hand, took out her wand, Loomis, and a ball of light appeared on the top of her wand. The sudden appearance of the bright light made the 8-eyed giant spider stunned for a moment, and it subconsciously tilted its head to the side. It works, Hermione said excitedly. The next second, the light ball on the top of the wand disappeared, and what was worse was that the 8-eyed giant spider began to run towards her. That's about enough, William thought. He raised his wand and shouted the spell, Luma Solemn. A round of sun suddenly rose in the forbidden forest, and its light was so blazing that the 8-eyed giant spider let out a shrill wail and tried desperately to escape from here. But a red light of the stunning spell caught up with it. William took out a dozen test tubes and began to squeeze its venom with very skillful movements. This is why I like to come at night. Their eyesight is very poor, and they are severely afraid of light. You can obviously solve it easily. Hermione, who had reacted, raised her eyebrows and looked at William angrily. Her look immediately reminded William of Professor McGonagall. But didn't you help me? William sealed the test tube of poison and shook it for her to see. 100 gold galleons a pint. No, the market price is only 60 galleons now. The profiteers in Diagon Alley, aren't they? He stopped talking in time. William, Hermione's voice suddenly became a little trembling. William turned his head and saw her pointing deeper into the forbidden forest, stunned in place. He was the same. There was a creature wrapped in a faint silver glow staggering. It had a horse-like body and a long horn on its forehead. A unicorn. How could someone hurt it so cruelly? Hermione murmured. The unicorn was covered with wounds, and it was already very difficult for it to move, but it still slowly walked deeper into the forbidden forest. We have to help it. She wanted to run to the unicorn. But William stopped her. Let me see you. William pointed his wand at the dense, dark forest and said very seriously. At the airport, boarding the plane soon. I'll post the next chapter after I get to the hotel. Sorry. Chapter 75 Traditional Virtues of Time Travelers. Let me see you. William pointed his wand at the dense, dark woods and said very seriously. He didn't know what was there, and he wasn't even sure if there was anything there, but every nerve reminded William that if he took another step forward, he would be in danger. I have no ill intentions, a deep male voice replied. With the sound of footsteps, a huge figure squeezed out of the woods. He was a very tall centaur with a cream-colored body and handsome features that could rival William. A bow that was very large for a human was held in his left hand, and the arrow was in his right hand, but it was not put on the bow. I thought you were people with bad intentions. The centaur put the arrow back into the quiver on his back. You are fools and should not come to the forest, the centaur said gently. My name is Firenze, William Buffalo, Hermione Granger. William and Hermione also introduced themselves. The appearance of the centaur made William feel a little relieved. They kept their distance and walked towards the unicorn together. The centaurs are in order and neutral, so they definitely didn't hurt the unicorn, but what else in the entire forbidden forest can hurt it? William remained alert, holding his wand. Although the unicorn looks holy and kind, it is an absolutely dangerous creature. The unicorn is extremely fast and powerful, and it is said that its skin has a certain resistance to spells. In a complex and dark environment like the forbidden forest, several wizards who go to besiege together may not be able to get anything out of the unicorn's horn. Is it Quirrell? Old Futau still needs the blood of a unicorn to prolong his life? But he has been very honest recently, and it seems that he has not left the castle much. William thought. He originally planned to wait until Halloween, while Quirrell used the troll to attract the attention of everyone in the castle, and secretly ran to the empty corridor on the 4th floor, and used a flying spell to lift his turban. If there is a face on the back of the head, then Professor Dumbledore will fly over. If there is no face on the back of the head, then carry forward the traditional virtues of the time traveler and write an anonymous report letter. Then deliver it to the principal's office on the 8th floor. Poor Aurora, the centaur Firenze sighed deeply. He stopped in front of the unicorn and gently patted its uninjured skin. Only after hearing his voice did the unicorn relax and collapse to the ground. Firenze began to take out the herbs. Let me do it. William stepped forward with his wand. His approach made the unicorn fall into deep panic. It struggled desperately, trying to stay away, and its body trembled violently. Why is it reacting like this? William was a little confused. Did the wizard hurt it? But if it was a wizard, it shouldn't feel instinctive fear of me. I'm just a student who poses no threat, William thought to himself, but did not ask. Relax, relax, William won't hurt you. Firenze comforted the unicorn and calmed it down. Enervate, the tip of William's wand emitted a silver light. The unicorn squinted its eyes and relaxed on the ground. Many shallow wounds on its body began to heal. The chest that had been violently heaving also calmed down at this moment. I can only do so much. The wounds on its body still need to be treated by the professors in the castle. William took out his camera and took pictures of the wounds on the unicorn. He didn't know how to distinguish them, but at least he knew that most of them were lacerations. Like sharp claws, no, it's nails, he suddenly realized. The distance between these wounds is very similar to the distance between fingers when a person opens his palm. The centaurs will heal them, but you need to warn the wizards in the castle. The Forbidden Forest has been particularly dangerous recently. We have found many traces of werewolf activities, Firenze nodded. As he spoke, he also began to apply some ointment with a pungent smell to the unicorn's wounds, and his movements were very gentle. Werewolf William understood the source of these wounds. But this doesn't explain why the unicorn is injured. No matter how many werewolves there are, they can't catch up with it even on a full moon night, William thought. And why would you let the unicorn go when it's already been injured to this extent? It can't be because of me, Hermione, and the Acromantula. William has always had a clear AC number for his own fighting ability. In terms of spells and transfiguration alone, he is confident that he can compete with students at the level of ordinary newts. With the addition of rune words and fancy tricks, Yaxley may not be a competent opponent. If he can use his inventory and collection at the bottom of the box, William is confident that he can hold off the professors, not McGonagall, Flitwick, Dumbledore, Quirrell's possible back of the head, and that annoying Snape, for a while. But he definitely can't beat the unicorn in the Forbidden Forest. Neither can the two William. One question was answered. More questions emerged. What happened to it? William asked directly. I arrived later than you. Firenze shook his head, lowered his head, and looked at William. His expression did not seem fake at all. I noticed the unusual movement of spiders and found this place. I don't know why, but their number has decreased a lot recently, which relieved a lot of pressure on us, the centaur said puzzledly. Cough, cough. William coughed embarrassedly. He could feel that Hermione's sharp eyes were staring at the back of his head, but William swore that there was absolutely no more than one eight-eyed giant spider to prove that this matter had anything to do with him. There will be no one left soon, William reminded himself to remember to finish off the enemy. Mr. Firenze, what do you mean by unusual movement? Hermione hesitated for a moment, as if she was struggling with how to address this centaur. They are gathering. You can just call me by my name, Firenze, Colt. Centaurs are different from wizards. There is no concept of surnames in our culture, Firenze explained with a smile. While speaking, he had already applied medicine to the unicorn. They will only do this when they are facing a threat. The centaur's expression was extremely serious when he spoke. You should leave, Colt. I need to protect Aurora and cannot escort you out of the forest in person, but I don't think you need to rely on my protection. He stood up and prepared to give a signal. Of course, William took out his wand and cast a disillusionment charm on himself and Hermione. He already knew that the Forbidden Forest was not safe now, so he had to be as cautious as possible. Folly. William, Mars is particularly bright recently. You have to be careful. Before they left, Firenze said abruptly. Thank you, William replied. He and Hermione walked out of the Forbidden Forest along the way they came. Quirrell is still in his office. How is this possible? William took out the Marauder's map and found Quirrell. He put the map back into his shoulder bag. Thank you, William, Hermione suddenly whispered. Compared to the past, her demeanor was much more relaxed, and her smile was more natural, just like the first time William used a stunning charm to knock down a second-year student from the Cat and Panther Academy who wanted to sneak attack. You're welcome, William replied. Hogwarts in the late autumn afternoon. The sun shone gently. But what William didn't see was that when he was about to put the activity map into his shoulder bag, a small dot suddenly walked out of the Forbidden Forest in the corner of the map. Thanks to Jin Yunhun and 3methylindole for the rewards, and thanks to 3methylindole for the character rewards. Thanks to 3methylindole for the monthly ticket. I just landed, so I'll post it first. I'll try to find time to revise the save draft at night, and resume 2 updates in the afternoon tomorrow. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.